All right, everybody, welcome to our Wednesday live stream. So, for those of you who don't know, we're starting to do live streams every Wednesday. So, Mondays and Tuesdays are essentially our videos, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're starting to do live streams. I'm here again with my every Wednesday partner, the commentary king, Uncivil Lewis, wanted to stop by today.
What's up?
So, we are going to be talking about all the current stuff that's going on. The Peretti case, we're going to start with. And we found a new video from Colin Noor. He's an attorney, two-way advocate, and he's put up a video that is very, very, very convincing that this may be murder. It's just hard to deny the evidence that he put forward. So we'll look at it and we'll see. We'll try to give our objective opinion. But if you guys can, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. I do want to say one thing. Instead of going through the DoorDash girl video, because she hasn't been convicted yet, we're going to also review Starfleet Academy from the Critical Drinker. So first, we're going to review the updates from the Minnesota shooting of Peretti. Then we're going to look at the Critical Drinker, Starfleet Academy, and then we're probably going to go get some lunch. So to be fair. Now, I also wanted to say that yesterday, I had some issues. So yesterday I put out a video against Bronca, but then everybody thought that video was the Alex Pretti shooting. So then I had to pull. So then I made that video members only because I wanted people, they didn't want to confuse people. Like, hey, here's my breakdown of the Alex Pretti shooting. This morning I get up, YouTube has demonetized the Alex Pretti shooting. So it killed all the traction. So now I got to do another video on Alex Pretti shooting. So that's so it can get traction. And then I'm going to send the video that I did arguing against Bronca, my review to that, so it can all be in sequence. Because right now it's all kind of messed up. I don't know why YouTube demonetized mine, but it just happens.
You can't talk about a shooting without referencing the pew pew. Okay, I'm trying not to say it, but you can't. I don't. How do you do it on your channel? As a matter of fact, because you're a 2A advocate, how do you talk about pew pews without saying pew pews?
I just use normal words. It seems to be fine. Or I just don't care. One of the two.
Oh my God. Okay. So look, let's go ahead and get started. Y'all know, if y'all have seen Nate's recent debate with Bronca.
You know what we should start with, because I don't think people saw the announcement that you might have made recently with Andrew concerning your brain cancer re-diagnosis and the good news.
Oh yeah.
So you should let's start with the good news. For that.
What's the good news?
Okay. So everybody understands. Obviously, most of you know, I've been I've essentially had a huge tumor in my head. Now, so they only were able to get 90% of the tumor out. So I was still struggling with like 10% of the tumor. So I had to go through multiple scans, MRIs. And then they give you the scan where they put this radioactive dye.
You get the radioactive dye test. You know it's for real, baby.
So the radioactive dye was supposed to, it sticks to the cancer cells or the melanoma. So it was sticking to all of that. And so before, I had it, and then they were going to do radiation treatment. So then now I was supposed to go and figure out, where exactly they were going to pinpoint the radiation treatment to. So then when I went in and got the actual scan, the scan came back totally negative. It came back zero. Like I had nothing. So they were like, this is strange, because we know you had like they said golf ball size, but that was more like tennis ball size.
That was more than a golf
ball.
Yeah.
Were you going back to the OG diagnosis when you said golf ball, or was it the revised golf ball? Because it was never golf ball. Golf ball is misinformation.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah.
Fake news. Fake news.
So anyway, what happened is that, so after that diagnosis, so we went and they were like, so it seems to have happened is that by cutting out that part of the tumor, it created an immune response. So my immune system ate up the rest of whatever was there. And that's why now I don't have to actually go to radiation, nor do chemo, do anything. I'm essentially totally free of any of that stuff.
I mean, you could still technically go get some gamma radiation. I hear that works out pretty well.
Yeah, that does. But there, like there are multiple side effects that I'm still struggling with, and I see some people maybe even notice it. Obviously, I have violent mood swings, so I can be very happy at sometimes. I can be very sad. And I mean, Uncivil's been essentially my therapist walking me through
the
it.
makeup is doing wonders, covering the black eye right now.
Yeah, he's been walking me through it. And it's just because the medication, because I'm anti-seizure medication. I'm taking this, so a lot of so I'm trying to work through it with my cognition, and it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. So so sometimes recently they've actually changed my medication again, because I'll be on a real high, and then I'll crash, and then I'll be happy, then I'll be extremely upset. So I've been going through all this emotional stuff while trying to produce content, while trying to keep it steady. So the doctors asked me to maybe tone it down a little bit and have other people like review my work before I put it out, just to make sure I'm not on those emotional roller coasters. So that's what I'm trying to start doing. So I'm assuming everybody's been bearing with me while I'm going through this, but that's essentially what's been going on. So
yeah,
that's the.
But the headline is the brain tumor apparently is all gone. So that's good news.
Thank you. So yeah, so that's thank you for. Let me read the name. Dad Bad 44. Dad Bod 44. Sorry, I can barely say. So praise God, Nate. Thank you so much.
I mean, I don't think anybody should give you any grief over that. You have one fucking eye. So let's I mean, let's just be honest. Over here,
one fucking eye and part of your brain is missing. Although it was tumor.
You know what? Just that gives them a little pass. Just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That.
Oh yeah. I did. I returned, but then I did a video. It's funny because me and Uncivil were talking about it. So I did a video after just going over the debate, and Uncivil was like, "Hey, that video seemed really personal and seemed really aggressive," and I was like, "Yeah." And it's funny because I didn't know how aggressive it was until so it was a whole cadre.
I noticed it. I noticed you usually don't go in as hard as like I would.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fucking hilarious. But I knew something was off.
Yeah.
I knew something was off. But
so it was funny because I didn't even take it down because it was aggressive. I took it down because all the comments, like there were a lot of comments that were saying, "Hey, listen, I thought this was the full Peretti breakdown, so I don't really know what your position is." So I said, you know what, let me because I didn't want. Usually I have hundreds of thousands of people watch these videos, so I said, you know what, let me pull this video and just make it members only. Put the Peretti video out first, and then when people will get my my understanding of the take. So then I spoke to Uncivil, and he was like, "Hey man, that video is pretty aggressive. You're like, it's pretty it's not you." So I looked at the video again, and I was like, shit, it was so bad. I'll tell you how bad it was. My wife even said, "That's not a video you usually do." She was like, "There's something wrong. That video it's not you. It seems personal. It seems angry. It seems this." And then I watched the video, and then I was like, yeah, it's personal. It's angry. It's not, usually I'm attacking the person. I'm not attacking the ideas. So I was like, well, so I was going to republish the video anyway. I was like, I'm just going to republish the video anyway. But then cooler heads prevailed. So what I did is I am doing the same video, but I'm doing it in a way where I'm attacking the ideas and not the person, the way I usually do video. So bear with me with that. And I'm also, and again, I'm not hiding from the other video. I was going to publish it unlisted and just if you want to watch it, it didn't matter. But I wanted to give that type of context because I was actually going to republish the other video anyway. But Uncivil said it's probably best if you
maybe tone it down, just
tone it down. And so that's what I'm going to do. So you're going to see a newer version of the video, but it's going to be pretty much the same content, but just a little bit newer version, just so people can understand what my position is. So thank you again. Let me see. Let me get the rest of these super chats. Marriage, thank you. I think I responded to that. Absolute great. Absolute base. Great news, Nate. Thank you. Let me move this up a little bit.
This is not an Asmund Gold stream. There's no base here.
When you are going back to whenever they invite me, I'll be back on there like ASAP. So you use all doctored photos of Peretti in the last video. Please make retraction and address first image you use. Okay, thank you. If I did, please call me out. Yes. You know me. So if that's the case,
I saw
want you.
where some people were like saying doctored because someone like cleaned it up to make it a little cleaner, but like I don't think it was doctored. I think it was just cleaner, but less grainy.
A lawyer should go all in on their beliefs. Yeah,
about the argument, but not towards the person.
About the idea. We talked about ideas.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say it that that video wasn't what I want. I like all the criticisms in there. I think are accurate. I don't think anybody can deny the actual criticism. It's just there, right? But it's not the information. It's the way it's presented, and I think I presented it in an unfair way to Andrew Bronca. The way I presented that was unfair. It was unfair to attack him versus the principles and policies. So, but again, if you guys want to see that video and see it, you guys will be able to see it. But I want to make sure I clean up what I want to clean up, and you'll see the old video, see the new video, and see exactly what I'm talking about. So there's some people like, oh, he hit it from the backlash. To be honest with you, I gained a whole bunch of subscribers from that video. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, what the hell? Like all these people hate Bronca, and so it was another reason to pull it down. I was like, I don't want to do this. Is not me. So again, please bear with me. I'm totally sorry for the long-term fans. So now let's get into this other stuff. Let me see. No doubt your research multiple manipulative edits. I don't know. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Let me see. Kurt being a therapist recording mood swings and aggressiveness. Any regular viewer, cloudy irony here.
They must have seen your videos on Legal.
Oh yeah, well today's video on Legal is going to be a lot of fun. I just saw he posted some bullshit, so I'll be responding to that today. That's going to be fun.
AI upskill does not hold up as evidence.
But we're not in a court of law, so it's workable for our purposes.
Read this one.
But I have to ask, what is your take on the fact that Pretti had a run-in with ICE before his death?
Irrelevant.
Would this have changed anything?
Irrelevant, unless it was like unless it was in like the minute before, like if it was immediately before. But if it was like the previous day, irrelevant, because we have to judge things based on what was happening at the time.
It could have been loiter, but that's not pertinent to what happened later.
Can we ever resolve the immunity of Fed police? We're hoping so. We're hoping so. Now, also, too, I want to apologize to Richard Ritchie. I know he's a left-winger. I know this. But I did the same thing to him in my videos as I did to Bronca. So I want to offer a public apology to Richard Ritchie. I was attacking him instead of the ideas and so there was a lot of that in that video, too. And again, I shouldn't have done that. And now I know, and everybody's like, yeah, cheering. And from that video, I got a whole bunch of subscribers. But now that after I realized what I did with Bronca,
are we talking about the TYT guy?
Yeah.
Oh no.
No, there was one of those videos.
I think this is an entirely different situation. Yeah, with Richie over there, doctor. He's faking like 8 different degrees. I think that
only 10. Only 10.
I think at that point it might be okay to start talking about his character. At that point, talking about him as a person seems a little bit more prudent.
He is Dr. Richie, though. He has ED, Kirk.
Okay.
He has ED, Kirk.
I have to say, there's cause to doubt everything at this point. Did he really earn that PhD?
I think he has ED.
Okay.
I think he does.
Yeah, well, it could be.
Keep reading some. All right, so we're gonna read like 2 or 3 more super chats, and the rest we're gonna put on hold. Do a watch party on Harvey Birdman. The show is hilarious, and your commentary would be hilarious too. Okay, Harvey Birdman.
That's an old school. That's we can
remember that. So we got to probably do that next time. The photoshopped his face to be not nasty end. Okay. I'm not.
He had the wrong facial inspection. That's what we're boiling things down to. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Someone photoshopped.
At what point do protesters become stalkers? That's a good question. Pretti is apparently implicated in the signal leak. Sounds like conspiracy to obstruct. That could be something. But again, the use of force is totally something different.
Yeah. See the problem with
becoming a YouTube member.
You see, like the problem with all that is like the cops can only rely on what they knew or what a reasonable person would know. So you can't like luck into self-defense, and you can't also luck out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because everything's based on your perspective. So if you had a case where like you think where you subjectively and objectively believe you're in self-defense, but you're mistaken for whatever combination of reasons, right? It wasn't what it appeared to be, right? But objectively and subjectively, you could believe it.
Yeah.
Then you're in the clear, right? You acted based on what you know, even though it wasn't in fact a threat, right?
Right.
So the fact that in fact it turned out not to be a problem, you are lawful. So like for a police shooting, for example, we'll do this. Like if a person like pulled out a cell phone, right? They did it because I've seen this happen, right? They pull out a cell phone like quick draw style. And I've actually seen like a woman hold it like a gun. I've actually seen it. Okay. Now, if in that situation the police shot her, I'd be like, okay, that's a righteous shoot. It's not a gun, but she just made the movement like it was a gun. It's holding it like a gun,
similar
right?
shape, same color. So,
right.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
reasonable to
so
say. Hey,
in that situation, the fact that it only turned out to be a cell phone, the police, it's no problem. But the exact opposite is true. Like if they, if this person isn't doing anything wrong, the police shoot him, and it turns out that it's throw in your scenario of choice. It's the plotter of the whatever scenario and blah blah blah. But it's like in that moment, the police don't know that. So the fact that the investigation reveals all that can't inform the decision.
It's
of that
not
moment.
salient to the actual scenario at all, because it's like there's no way they would have known that. Like he could, let's say hypothetically, and correct me if I'm wrong, lawyers, he could have been an agitator and were planning something nefarious, but that's not actually pertinent to the exchange that he had with that particular officer at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, and it's funny because Graham v. Connor goes into that. You have to go with the facts the officer knew at the time the force was used. And these are facts that we don't even know if the officer was aware of. So we can't impugn it to the officer.
So if it turns out Pretti was part of some signal group and was part of a conspiracy and like throw in all the things you want, like all that stuff. But to my mind, I know this will frustrate you, but I'm like, it's all irrelevant because unless the officer could know that in the moment, like the use of force has to be based on what he knew, reasonably could observe, based on the totality of the circumstances. So unless the officer knew all those things, it disappears. So yeah, that's legal analysis.
Not really.
Yes. I want to read this one, and we're gonna go to the video. My uncle battled brain cancer for 20 years. He was diagnosed in the 70s. He went through every trial and every experimental surgery. In a small way, his battle helped save you. And I'm grateful it did. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. And I want to make sure I make no excuses for my content. I put it out. I looked at it. I said, this is good. And I put it out. So I make no excuses. I stand by every video I've ever put out. I stand by everything I want to do. But when you make mistakes, then you have to own up to them. So I've made mistakes. And I know these guys don't think I made a mistake with Richie. I personally feel I made a mistake with Richie.
Richie had it
that
coming.
Video was too personal. I personally made a mistake with Bronca. That video was too personal. I've done takedown videos before, and I've never, like the Richie video, I'm actually almost embarrassed about that video.
Really?
So I was going to take it down. Especially the second one. I honestly feel a little embarrassed because I was like, wow, why did I go after him so hard? Usually it's just like, here are the facts. I'll see you guys later. Not, oh, you're such an evil man. Like, no, that's ridiculous.
Richie is a habitual lying fraud.
Yeah, but that's just not me. I don't do that. Everybody else can do it. I just don't do that. And I've never done it, and I'm not going to start doing it. Yeah, I'm not going to start doing it.
And my channel.
Take your time healing. Some personality traits will take years to return, if ever. Experience tells me that. Happy to see you're trying to dial back the aggression from the members and videos. Threw me for a loop. Oh, so you even saw it too. Yeah, it was kind of crazy, but But again, this is all the struggle, and so we're trying to get better. So I have some more super chats we're going to read in a second, but let's go to the videotape because we're doing the videotape. Let me see.
Let me pull that up. So Kurt, have you seen people comparing this scenario with the Miss Good? The what's her name?
I mean, I haven't seen any explicit comparisons personally, but I mean, they're two different situations that require two different legal analysis. So I'm still of the opinion the shooting with respect to Good was a good shoot.
Right. But but I know you said this one absolutely not.
Well, I don't know if I said absolutely, but I said the probabilities.
You said you were sure. I remember.
I don't remember saying sure. I don't remember saying that. I remember saying the balance of probability suggested it was a bad shoot and unlawful.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did want to before we get into the shooting. So I want to just tell you guys where we're at. So we watched Colin Noir. He's a lawyer, 2A expert, I think he's former law enforcement, and he did a breakdown, and his breakdown has more detail than my breakdown. So my breakdown, I tried to get as much detail in, but his even has more detail. So we're going to watch a breakdown that he did on his channel, and we're going to tell you if it changed our opinions or not. Now, at this moment in time, my opinion before going into this video was the first officer who showed all that aggression, pushing the people, doing all that, violating those people's rights, essentially assaulting those people. That officer had the most criminal liability for the deprivation of rights. And now we know that officer was one who actually fired their gun into this guy. So I think that officer should be charged with murder. I think it's unjustified.
He instigated it.
Yes.
The whole incident was instigated by that officer. Absolutely. There's no reason for him to have been pushing people unless he was trying to push somebody out of the way of a car or a fire. There's no reason for him to do that.
Now the other officers who fired after hearing the first shot, I said that was a possibility, right? The possibility is if that first shot came from the suspect's gun, the SIG, and it was a misfire, then it would justify all those other officers shooting at that suspect because he was trying to get up at the time the first shot was made. But if it was one of the officers that shot, then you'd have to do an analysis on whether that shooting or at that moment that shooting was justified in that moment. And so I was saying for all the other officers, if they shot after that first shot was a misfire, they would all be justified. But if it's one of the officers that shot, then that's a whole nother analysis. They may not be justified. So what I said is most of the officers would be justified, but the one who actually accelerated the incident may not, probably isn't going to be justified. So my conclusion was the shooting was unjustified, but there are justified officers within it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's culpability that needs to be had, and I've already told these guys I'm going to take the position that a lot of people aren't going to like that. I think the people of Minnesota, and that includes the people out there protesting and Walls and everyone else that fomented it, this is also in large part their fault. So
away from Pretti, focusing on an entirely different
video. Right. Okay. What was your position before we started?
No, my position is the balance of probabilities is a bad shoot, and I thought that was probably true even if the SIG fired first, which is where you and I depart on our analysis of Graham. But the best opinion I have is I think it's a bad shoot, and I think it's some version of homicide, is what I think.
Homicide like.
I'm not interested in debating degrees between murder and manslaughter at this point. That's all I'm trying to say.
That's fair.
Yeah. In other words, it's unlawful. It's just the degree of which it's unlawful.
It's uncivil.
It's very uncivil.
So we're going to play the video now and essentially let us know what you think.
Now we'll slow things down so each moment is clear. Here is Pretti. Several agents are restraining him, and this is the Border Patrol agent who will shoot him first.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
This appears to be when agents first notice that Pretti is carrying a firearm and yell that he has a gun. Watching the same moment from a different angle, the agent who first pepper sprayed Pretti beats him several times with the spray canister.
Now, I'm going to say this. The first officer that sprayed is now beating with the spray canister. That officer's kind of out of control, no?
Yes, I think so. And this is actually part of the point that I was going to make about this whole thing. If you watch, I think, yes, that officer who had initially instigated the whole incident was absolutely not in his right mind. There's no way you get control of a civilian population that's hostile by just pushing random people. That's how you continue to ramp up that anger and that animus that's already built up. And so I think that him spraying Pretti in the face and then beating him with the canister after the canister, didn't work. It's just so many. aspects to this that I think that this guy had had enough.
No.
No, I just think the police are basically overreacting, basically pretty much at every step.
Here we go.
We can see that both of Pretty's arms are pinned down by his head. This
Now, I think that's extremely, extremely important because you had a lot of people saying he's reaching for a weapon. You got people this, but here you have a clear picture of his hands being by his head. And I'm assuming because he's just been pepper sprayed, he's probably trying to, wipe out his eyes and stuff like that. But that, I think, takes that aggressive posture from this guy because you can see he's got his hands over his head. Does that change any of the way you guys feel about the analysis?
Nope.
No.
All right, here we go.
agent in gray reaches to remove Pretty's weapon from his hip. As this agent unholsters his gun, nudges the agent in gray out of the way, and fires. Let's rewind and focus on the agent who shoots first. Just seconds before he fired, he was facing away from Pretti and focusing on an entirely different situation as he tries to spray a nearby woman with an irritant. The spray appears to malfunction and the agent turns as he adjusts it. That's when someone yells that Pretti has a gun. And around 5 seconds after fully turning his attention toward Pretti, the agent draws his weapon and shoots. His arm visibly recoils at the first shot. The firearm has clearly been removed from the scrum when the first shots are fired toward Pretti at close range. The officer who disarmed Pretti can be seen reacting to the sound of the first shot, looking back toward the skirmish. The shooter was standing.
Okay, so we got a lot there. So that was one of our biggest questions, is that where did that first shot come from? So we see recoil from that officer. We see the officer who actually has the gun turn around after the first shot. So they're making the case that this wasn't a misfire. This was actually a shot from one of the officers into Pretti.
Because some people were saying initially that the Sig Sauer, which is known to misfire, some people were saying it's probably that, and that's what the officer was reacting to. And I know you're way more knowledgeable in the Sig than I am, but is that actually a plausible explanation?
I mean, it's plausible, but there's just no video evidence that I've seen that reflects that that's true. I mean, you see the gun being carried away, and I've looked at it from multiple different angles, and I don't see anything that suggests the gun fired.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So
Let's go back to the video.
Toward the skirmish. The shooter was standing behind Pretti and not under direct threat, contradicting statements from Homeland Security officials that he fired defensive shots.
Yeah, I don't see how you get he fired defensive shots from any of these videos. Like these don't seem like defensive shots at all.
I don't know how they're defining defensive shots. I think that's the one thing that I'm curious about. I would need to see their manual, the TM, whatever, as to how they describe it. But from what I've seen from this, it seems like the officer, the one that actually shot Pretti initially, he heard the call, gun, gun, gun. The gentleman behind him, his colleague, who cleared the weapon from the holster, ran it across Pretti's back, and you can actually see in some angles that his shirt pulls up. I don't think the officer that shot him actually saw his partner clear the weapon. I think he heard that there's a weapon, and he saw Pretti trying to get ground and get himself to a position where he could defend himself, and then thought that Pretti was going for his gun.
I don't buy it. I mean, maybe, but like he has to believe that there's a threat in front of him. You know, the call of gun, gun, gun doesn't mean shoot, shoot, shoot. Doesn't mean that.
But
yeah,
it does. But it does heighten the situation. If you have somebody that is combative and they say, "Hey, this guy has a gun," immediately, what goes off in my head, at least, this guy needs to be subdued, and he is now lethal.
yeah. So I think there's a happy middle place in between the two. I think the happy middle place is just because you yell gun, gun, gun doesn't mean you're authorized to use force. You'd be heightened maybe to react, but you still have to say what was reasonable. If you reach for the gun, if you are doing something where someone can believe that they're there's an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury, then you can make that argument. But I think yelling gun, 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 it gets you part of the way there, but I don't think it'll get you across the finish line. You need more.
Well, we don't know what the officer saw because there's no evidence, there's no information available. So if this ever came to trial, and let's assume that the officer believe he saw something, right? Presumably the officer has to testify because he's the only one that can possibly testify to his own mental state. So he'd have to testify to say what he think he saw or not. And then other people would testify as to what they did.
Right.
I removed the gun, I did this. And then, a jury would have to sort out the facts as they do. And, I've said this multiple times and I'll say it again, like the facts could be other than what we see, right?
Absolutely.
It's like I've never tried to say like it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
Because we can't see through his eyes.
Like, it's like I think there's enough for probable cause. I think there's enough for a charging decision. I think there's enough to move forward to the next step of the analysis and press this further. If this ultimately went to trial, could the state disprove what they need to disprove beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't know, but it looks like there's sufficient cause to press this forward.
I think an investigation at the very minimum. Absolutely. This is a shooting that needs to happen. The way that I would defend the officer would be that if you, from the back angle, I don't know if we have it in this video, but the officer who initially shot Pretti with the first shot, he doesn't even react when his colleague wrests the gun from his holster. I would imagine that if someone's saying gun, 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 and you see the gun being moved, your eyes would track it. And at no point does the officer who actually shot Pretti even remotely look like he sees the weapon being moved at all.
But then it also begs the question then, why shoot? If you, number one, you're shooting in the back too. So he would have to in some way explain that he believed Pretti was a threat to maybe one of the officers in front of him, or because he can't say that he's a threat to him, right? Because Peretti is facing he's facing down the other way. So it's going to be how it's explained. But let's continue with the video.
He also has a vantage point to see the gun pulled from the scene, but
we, like you were just saying, you don't know if he can see. Like,
yeah, I don't know what he saw.
Yeah, we can't tell if he saw.
We can say he could have from his position, sure, but at the same time, it's equally plausible that he didn't see it because, like I said, he didn't even react because his buddy reached across Pretty's back, and you can actually see when Pretty's shirt rolls up as the weapon gets cleared. But none of the other officers react as well because none of them have seen it. And that's why I'm in the camp that none of them realized the gun was unholstered and cleared already.
Let's do it.
it's unclear if he did and whether he thought a weapon was still on Pretti. He then fires 3 more shots from behind Pretti.
Yeah, this doesn't look good. It looks very, very negligent. Very, very negligent. This doesn't look good.
I move it to reckless easy.
Yeah, this is not looking good.
Yeah, so it's like, we're at this point, we're debating between murder and manslaughter at this point. Like, that's like, so yeah.
And you also have to understand too, because there's the phenomenon, the phenomenon where, let's say at a robbery, if you're at a bank, not a bank robbery, and the guy pulls the gun out to the teller. The teller generally just focuses on the gun. So a lot of times they won't even be able to tell you how the person looks because you're focusing on the threat. And that could be the possibility with this officer and not seeing the gun. You could just focus on one thing and not notice anything else around you. So that's something I think it's just, you have to understand the limitations of the human consciousness in that particular point in time.
Whose arms are down as he appears to brace himself against the pavement. In one hand, he still holds his phone, and in his other, his glasses. The agent in gray who removed Pretty's gun carries it across the street. Pretti is disarmed and falling to the ground. But the agent who first pepper sprayed Pretti and later beat him with a canister also pulls out his gun. From a distance, despite the fact that Pretti is lying motionless on the ground, these 2 agents fire 6 more shots. Neither is under threat.
All right. So the officer who instigated all this, who sprayed the pepper spray and all that, Pretty's already shot 4 times. There's the pause, because we have a pause. They move back. He's laying down, face down on the floor. and the officer who initiated pulls out their gun and shoots him, and the other officer, the initial officer, also shoots him. I don't see how you don't get murder from this.
So this it's funny because this is the scenario that people were talking about when it came to Miss Good. Oh, there was a pause. There was a pause in between one of the three shots. No, this was a clear pause. There's several seconds that goes by from this man being on the ground, being shot, bleeding out, and then boom, 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 boom. I agree that those subsequent shots were absolutely unnecessary. Should they have had their weapons trained on him? Absolutely. You'd make sure he's down. But firing into him, no, I don't think so.
I'm kind of just sitting where I sat before. I'm mostly focused on the first shot. I don't think it's justified, and so that's kind of enough for me to press this forward.
So do you believe that both the officers that shot that second volley after the pause, do you think that could rise to criminal charges?
For the second officer, it's a little bit more challenging because he's responding to the first officer's shooting, and so he might be able to rely on that because we have to judge it from his frame and his mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
well, I disagree. From a reasonable officer.
Well, both, yes.
Yeah.
We have to judge it both from his own subjective mental state and from the reasonable officer's point of view. And him seeing his other officers shoot provides another basis for him to think that there's a threat.
A reasonable threat, yeah.
So I think his liability is possible, but less obvious.
All right. The first officer that shot, do you think he's gone?
I think the balance of probabilities favors a homicide.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that's what you think too.
Yeah. So I think, and people are going to hate me for this, because of what these federal agents have been going through. Because keep in mind, they have been stalked, harassed, doxxed every day, has stuff thrown at them, and then to make matters worse, and I think people overlook this, the population there has been trying to keep them awake by finding their residence, whether the Hilton or wherever else they're staying, and they sit outside and try to keep them up. Now, here's the thing: if you're on a mission, right, you need at least 4 hours of consecutive hours of sleep in order to be barely functional. And if these officers aren't getting that because the population they're animated to the point that they want to just try anything they can to disrupt whatever's going on, that sets in motion these type of events. Because this officer, if I'm defending him, I'm going to say, look, the people who are out there are the ones keeping him awake at night. He's not in his right mind to function because of their actions, so that plays a role.
I hate that entire line of argument. I have to be honest. I find that line of argument repugnant. It's if you're a law enforcement officer and you have a gun is a deadly weapon, and everyone, whether it's civilian or not, when you have a gun, that carries a lot of responsibility. You have a right to use it in self-defense. But I was groggy and they were keeping me stressed and there was whistles and all the rest of it. It's like, I'm not buying any of that, man. It's like, no, you have to believe that subjectively and objectively that there's a deadly threat that requires an imminent use of force. That's the analysis, not there's been some whistles and I wasn't able to get good sleep at my Marriott last night. That's not none of those things, man.
Okay, what do the people have to say? What do they think?
Well, let me see, because I don't have the other life. Let me tell you, these super chats starting to pile up.
If you're really tired, maybe take a sick day or something. I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't be carrying a gun that day.
It says, Nick, please stop apologizing. You just went through something really serious, and anybody who doesn't understand, compound stand end of. Yeah, well, I'm actually not apologizing. Well, I am apologizing, but I'm just giving people context of what I've been personally going through, because I'm trying to get back on the horse and, going through. And again, it was brain surgery. Like Kurt keeps telling me and my wife keeps telling me, you need to stop it. Understand. You got to relax. So it's true. So, and I'm getting through it. But I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me or sorry for what I'm doing. Because, the community here has given me a great life and given me a great platform and have allowed me to be honest with you guys. Like I can say, I think this shooting is good. I lose maybe 100 subs either way, but the community stays because they know I'm giving you my honest opinion, no matter what the backlash is going to be. But I have a responsibility to give you my honest opinion in a way that's not personal, that's not animus, that is just based on the facts and the law as objective as I can. And the Rashard Ritchie video was not that. And the Andrew Bronco video was not that. And I will do better. I promise to do better. You don't have to, and I appreciate it, but I promise to do better. Congrats on 1K Uplift Civil. Woo!
Thanks. The gym work is still going. Appreciate that.
But for Pretti to have a run-in with the cops a week prior, then the next weekend, she'll up
With the poo
with the pew pew is not irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Yeah, it is irrelevant. I understand, but you would have to show me that those cops knew he was that type, but I just don't
They can
see
only rely on what they know.
it. Yeah,
At the time.
At the time.
Yeah,
They can't get lucky.
it's Graham v. Connor. Now it's funny because Graham v. Connor is even codified in Minnesota law. We looked at it this morning. It's codified in Minnesota
You
law.
understand? By the way, when I say irrelevant, I mean legally irrelevant.
Yes.
It's irrelevant to the legal analysis because for something to be relevant, it has to change a fact in dispute, make a fact more or less likely. But it's irrelevant because what happened a week later or a week earlier can't possibly inform what was going through the officer's mind unless they personally were involved or had some sort of personalized knowledge. But short of that, it can't possibly inform their knowledge of the situation.
Yeah, definitely. Here we go. Let's finish out this video.
Let's go!
In total, the agents fire 10 shots in 5 seconds.
So that's the end of the video. So that's the end of that video because we're about to review another one. But so from that perspective, and I'll say this, if you take, because we have to take into account the totality of the circumstances for Barnes v. Felix.
Mhm.
So we're talking about the earlier pushing and shoving that was shown on this video too. They weren't resisting, the pepper spray coming out, and the officer being overly aggressive. I honestly cannot see how anyone can clearly say this is justified based on the totality of the circumstances that we see here. What say you?
I think the DOJ is going to back the officer and say, look, he's put in a bad circumstance. The population's against him, and so you know what? He may have acted in a way that isn't ideal, but not overtly malicious. I honestly think that's going to be the defense.
It's premature to think about defenses. It's because we're just in too much of a zone of uncertainty. All I can say is based on what I can see, it seems to be a bad shooting, so it warrants pressing further. It could be a lot of things when it comes to defenses. So that just feels premature at this point.
Fair.
A lady I know who really watches the news asked me, why all the news about ice in Minnesota? I'm from there, and that is all we have in winter is ice. Reporting something I don't know. I love you, Nate. God continue to bless you and your family. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Judge Knapp had a good interview with Sheriff Hathaway. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out because I love that judge. If the officer had asked them to step back and they hadn't, could the officer then put his hands on them? We have to understand what reasonable and proportional force is. Stand back. Now, if you're doing crowd control, maybe. But if you look at the beginning of the video, the women are standing in the middle of the street and they're not blocking the officer's path. So
he has to actually step forward and push her. I can see if she were like within, like if she was as close as Kurt or Nate is, but he actually had to clear some distance and then push her. And that's, to me, that's what told me it was unnecessary.
And then I just also want to say, he crossed the street and kept assaulting them. So they were being pushed when they crossed the street. So they weren't even near where the ICE officers were. They were across the street and he pushed them again. And all those, and I keep saying, all of those use of forces have to be justified because if they're not, they're assaults. Think about this. If you take the badge off the cop, that's an assault, right? But you put the badge on the cop, it's not an assault only if it's justified.
And then when you're asking stand back, the legal question is why? Why is the officers asking them stand back?
Because he said so.
Yeah, that doesn't work. There are legal reasons and illegal reasons. The cops just can't give me any arbitrary order. They can only give me lawful order. So it's like, okay, if you ask them to step back, why? For what purpose? What's the law enforcement purpose for causing him to step back? Why are you doing that?
Because he said so.
No, that doesn't do it.
Let's do this. But for Peretti to have a run-in with ICE prior to this and have suffered a broken rib, then return the next week with a pew-pew is not irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant to the legal analysis.
It's irrelevant to the legal analysis.
It's just irrelevant to the legal analysis. We are all humans. We admire you, humanity with Bronco. Thank you, humility with Bronco. Thank you so much. Shipwreck suggested shoving a woman, and Peretti were waving traffic through the operation and were told to leave but refused. Officer then used force. Well, being told to leave a public street, that officer cannot do. Like, Peretti, to me, was filming. He was filming from a distance, and he only stepped forward when the women were being pushed by the officer. And the officer really has no right to tell a civilian that they can't be on the street unless, for instance, if they're in the middle of their
federal
operation.
Officer in particular. Federal officers are not there to enforce traffic law.
Yeah.
It's like, even if she's standing in the street, okay, maybe that's illegal, maybe it's not, but it's not ICE unless there's a reason for the federal operation. So how did they connect together?
Get off the street because I said so.
No.
My street now.
No.
Video from the other side of the street prior to the original video shows one of the protesters, possibly Peretti, saying something to the effect of, "I'm going to hurt you." I would need to see that video. I've not seen that video.
That could be relevant.
Yeah,
but
could be relevant.
Is it geared toward the officer that did the pushing though? Because just saying I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, who was it said to?
Right.
Yeah, but even if it was said, if he's saying that to the officers in general, I think that's highly relevant to your state of mind. Yeah. So if that's true,
that could be relevant.
That would change the amount. But then you still have. But then even it's a factor within all these other factors. So it may not be determinative because a lot of people want to look for that one silver bullet. But when you're dealing with factors, you're weighing them against each other. Well, yeah, he said they'll hurt them, but then if he runs at the officer with his hands up, you can't just kill him and say, well, he said earlier. You know what I'm saying? You have to kind of really look at the totality of the circumstances. As a Minnesota resident, it takes all of the chaos, all of this chaos is on Waltz and Frey, and Pretti quit his job a month ago to join the ICE watch in Minnesota.
That's cool. You know what? As to that aspect, Pretti is a free person like anyone else. He obviously has the right to quit his job or not. If he wants to engage in lawful speech, even if I'm pro-ICE, I'm pro-deportation. If he wants to join a group to watch ICE and report on their movements, that's freedom of speech.
The agitators are two women and Prietti. They were breaking federal law, aiding and abetting federal illegal.
That is not at all obvious.
Yeah, that's not true. But I don't know if that's true.
And even if it was true, it still wouldn't justify the use of force.
Yeah,
because you can't shoot someone merely because they're breaking federal law. That doesn't work either.
If you break a minor law, because I think even if you break a misdemeanor,
there was a book written by a law professor called 3 Felonies a Day, in which he argues the average American commits 3 felonies a day because when you add up all the regulations on all the different statutes, on all the different levels, federal, state, local, county, and everything else, and how broad they can be written. Yeah, it's like, so I might have committed a felony today. If you put your thinking at hard enough, I don't think I should be shot either.
Draconian.
Yeah. Do we know the details of the Snowbank Park from the pink coat lady video? Yet to know if the woman was being detained at the time of the shove. From my view, she was not being detained at all. She had been shoved to the floor. And I don't even think they were arrested.
But
so
if you're trying to get control of somebody, right, you're not going to push them away from you, right? Because just like with what's her name? Good. They told her, hey, stop, get out, come to me. They're trying to push the person away that you're trying to grab is counterintuitive. So, that if somebody would have to have some video where it's like, hey, she was being detained, but even so, the officer's being an asshole. Just pushed her.
Can you read this for me?
You pretend no previous interaction for 3-4 minutes before an or lawful orders get on the street. I haven't ignored it. I just haven't seen it. I don't know what the nature of those interactions are. So 3-4 minutes before could be contemporaneous enough to be relevant. So it could influence the analysis. I feel embarrassed for you. Go watch the full video of the first interaction arrest of the other protester.
We have.
We've watched. I don't, it could be informative, but 3 to 4 minutes is a long time in a shooting. That's a long time to trace back. So, what are the nature of those interactions? How does it influence what happened later? You have to wonder it. So, I haven't ignored it. I haven't seen it, but how relevant it's going to be is going to be probably tangential, unless he said something to the cops like, "I am going to murder you,"
or he flags him with his weapon, or
flags a
something.
gun, or something. Like something like that would give them that heightened alert response. Then maybe, but
then even if this is true, why then push them? Why then one? Remember, the one cop pushed them on bias. Why then pull out the pepper spray? If this is true, then it's even the DOJ policy says force is only to be used as kind of a last resort. It's not supposed to be the first thing you come to. The first thing you're not supposed to be doing is pushing people. So I understand the need to kind of make these agitators look like they've done some criminal effect, but that doesn't mean you should.
And they might have done criminal things. But it's like still it's like when you get to the moment of shooting, you need the justification for lethal force.
Yes. We're gonna pull down a couple more of these. Put down the 5 videos, and we're gonna go to the next video. Watch the CBS News video of the many minutes before alleged assault, where the women and Pretti were repeatedly removed by ICE from the street. So matter of fact, I'll look for that while we watch the other video. You've all watched this 100 times and still aren't sure about what happened. That's why we watched this one, because it has more detail. But the officers should have known.
I'm not sure what happened because the video. I'm not sure what happened because the video doesn't necessarily reveal enough for me to dispose of the case.
And let's not forget though, there is body cam cover, body cam video. All the officers there were wearing body cams. Yeah. So if they release those body cams, they will know for sure what happened. So I don't know why they haven't released it yet.
Yeah, sometimes in a video, it's pretty freaking clear, and you can kind of move to the end of the page. But it's like, in this situation, I can't quite move to the end of the page. There's enough space in my mind, for there to be questions that I can't get all the way to the end beyond a reasonable doubt. But it's like I can get the probable cause.
But yeah, I think when the body cam footage of Miss Good came out, because remember, people were debating, he never got hit. He was in no danger. He never got hit by the vehicle. And then when his body cam footage came out,
the phone cam.
The Good situation was enough. It's like, because there was enough information in that Good situation for me to say, okay, I think it's a justified shooting.
Right.
So sometimes I can call it. In this situation, I'm like, I think it's more likely this, but there could be things that I'm not quite aware of. So one of the views, what is it that Socrates said? The start of wisdom is saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It says, Nick, could the officer say that he heard gun, 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 which I would believe it says, saw someone grabbing the gun and thought Pretti's hands were drawing the gun from his hand. Well, I'll even be even more charitable than this. Just because if someone says gun, gun, gun and pulls one gun off you, that doesn't mean you're disarmed, right? An officer now, because generally I've seen it in my career, where if someone does have one weapon, sometimes they'll have a knife or some other weapon, and they can even have a secondary gun. So just because you removed one gun doesn't, I think, lessen the height. But then I still think you have to understand that you still have to be able to articulate that you're facing a serious threat to your safety. And here, someone face down, his hands are by his head, and it's going to be hard to articulate that based on what we've seen now. That's my opinion, because again, like I said, if what we've seen here is all accurate, then I don't see how you don't charge these officers. Also in Minnesota, it's illegal to conceal and carry without ID. Yes, but I don't think they were arrested.
First of all, did the officer know that?
Yeah.
Second of all, what does that have to do with anything when the gun was fired?
He's a criminal.
It's actually illegal to be in the street like they were. It's illegal to jaywalk. Right. If all that stuff that they were doing was technically unlawful, but that doesn't rise to the effect of I find the he didn't have an ID argument particularly hilarious. I find that just really funny, because the right wing people, some of them are looking to the finer points of concealed carry. It's where he wasn't really doing this exactly right, exactly so. And I'm like, really, you're making this argument? It's give me a break.
Just a little ironic.
Give me a break, guys. Come on.
Another point of such inconsistencies is a standard operating procedure that discerns gun threat. What say you?
Oh, yeah, I think that's the point that I was trying to make, is that he knew that there was a weapon on his persons at some point because his colleague called it out, right? And just like Nate said, hey, there could have been other weapons there. Now, for the first shot, second, okay, yeah, but the 6 shots after the big pause, yeah, no, I don't think so. No.
Ice pistola, all right, or postal, from psychological warfare. It's possible.
I think that played a big role. I think absolutely. I mean, I know when I was in the Army doing stuff, like, it's not having a lot of sleep and me having a weapon is a bad idea. But there was a reason I was a medic. So like that, it does. Having a lack of sleep and being irritated absolutely affects your performance.
Nate, love you. Joe, Kurt, and Bronca, you're both snarky in the beginning. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation at the end. So glad to hear. And even from that conversation, you can kind of see, because Kurt actually called me during that, but I don't know if you could see the transition. Like, I was very amped up at the beginning, then I was very mellow at the end. And it was funny because my wife even noticed. She was like, yeah, you can tell. But it is what it is. I actually enjoyed the conversation at the end. So I believe he's actively resisting arrest. And they found a gun on him while he was resisting arrest. Good job, ICE. Well,
FAFO.
Yeah, we can all disagree. What's the legal process if Piete went to that location and took his gun because he knew it would cause an incident? If we can find proof beyond a reasonable doubt, what is the legal view for the officers?
Very, very, very marginal.
Because the officers would have to know.
Yeah, it's very, very marginal because it potentially inform Peretti's subjective intent, but that only really gets you so far because the officers, when you're thinking about the objective and subjective, you're thinking, what did the officer know subjectively in his own head? And what would a reasonable officer in that position know in his own head? With all available evidence. Yeah. So like Peretti's internal mental state is marginal. So even if you could find proof that he, intended to do whatever, it's of marginal relevance.
But I think to me that's kind of a slippery slope because then any police officer could arrest you for something and then go later and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, this guy, had some weed in his car, so he was
also intent alone isn't illegal. You need intent and action.
Yeah, some type of conspiracy or something.
Yeah.
Because of the elevated responsibility as a pilot. If I am too fatigued to function, I'm obligated to call in fatigue and not show up for duty.
I will tell you right now.
Or truck driver, right? I was really tired. Yeah, I was really tired doing all these long haul routes.
I agree with you guys.
That's not going to really work very much, guys.
I absolutely agree with you guys, except the Department of Defense does not care. Excuse me, Department of War does not care. You will operate under suboptimal conditions. They do not care. I'll tell you that from personal experience. They don't care.
I do. I appreciate this. We're all debating this in a prison camp. The liberals won. We're all debating whether this is murder or not. The liberals accomplished what they set out to. ICE is being pulled and backing down. Yeah, they won. But I think ICE has not helped their situation. They've helped the ball along. Devil's advocate question. We see officers often ask people to back up and even push them while they conduct an investigation. It's all
context dependent.
What changes this into assault, in your opinion?
Well, it doesn't hurt that in those situations you're talking about state level authority, where they have authority to generally police issues such as crowd control generally, traffic generally, right? Federal law enforcement is much narrower in its scope. So that's not what the federal law enforcement officer does. So if a state level officer tells you to back up, there's a whole lot more situations in which that's a lawful order because the scope of their authority is broader in a practical sense.
There would have to have been an active operation happening. Like in order for that to be justified, hey, we're trying to subdue this guy. He's dangerous. You guys pushing in presents a danger to the public. So yes, we're trying to push you back for your own safety. That's a scenario that could be justifiable, but in this, I don't think there was any active operation. So it's just like you guys just being asked.
There's a crime scene. Someone's been shot, so the police, want to block off an area, of 100 feet in every direction so they can survey the scene. That's perfectly legitimate. There's a lot, but it's all context dependent. What are we trying to do? For what purpose? And so forth and so on. Yeah. Law's fun.
Problem is that to be tormented and stalked for this long, again, it's the government, so will make the most devoted on the edge. No way we can take all those factors into account. But the law demands that if you're on that job and you're doing that particular work, it must be reasonable. So even though you're right, all of these things can play, they're going to say, well, what would the reasonable officer standing in that place do? And they're not going to say they were
It's our government. We have every right to observe what they're doing.
Gun plus further movement plus black object in hand and at waistband level, which you seem to ignore, seems justified enough to me.
I think that's sort of the point that I was trying to make, is that I would understand from the I understand from that officer's point of view right now. Keep in mind, none of us actually know. None of us are saying definitively we know what that officer saw. That's literally impossible unless we're seeing through his eyes. There's a body cam. There's something where we can see his body track. When the officer who initially shot his colleague cleared the weapon by reaching his right arm across Pretti's back, unholstering the weapon, and then dragging across his back, pulling his shirt up. From my perspective, and I think what's his name? Officer Tatum also said this. I don't think the initial shooter saw the weapon being cleared. His body language did not change. He didn't even acknowledge it. But I think because Pretti was trying to get a base, trying to defend himself, that the officer saw his hand go to his right side toward the holster and then fired the shots preemptively.
Yep. Let me take this down and put this here. All right. So yeah, so I think gun, fertile moon, black. I do think that I do think you have an argument, but I think based on what we see, it's again, like I think Uncivil keeps saying, it's not as clean cut as either side is trying to make it up to be. Always appreciate unbiased legally. These issues are always nuanced and complex. Critical thinking requires proper perspective. Yeah. Amen to that.
But that's why we don't just sit here and agree with one another. You know, that's why there's a variety of different takes on some of this stuff and hopefully that's why y'all come to the channel.
Let me see something.
I'm not ignoring the argument, by the way. Everything you say could be true, but it would depend what that officer see. Like you say, there's a furtive movement. Did the officer see that? What is the perspective of the officer? Right. So there's information we don't have here. And like you could be right. These factors could be true. And whether or not a jury believed them, like the officer could testify that he did or didn't see it, the jury would choose whether to believe or not. It's a question of fact. So it's like all I'm trying to say is, on balance, I think that this warrants moving forward. Yeah, it could be right in the end.
It should be investigated. It should be. Any shootings should be investigated. If anything, to clear the officers.
Want to see what happened to all the super chats?
We lost them.
Graham purely proved to objective. Let me see. Graham applies purely to objective, reasonable tests. As Kurt noted, criminal liability is different. It requires both subjective and objective analysis, including the officer's mens rea. The problem with this is that hold on, where do the comments go?
Did you lose your comments?
Show comments on stage.
No, that's not what you want. Nate pressed a button and lost all the super chats.
Sorry.
Let me see. Yes.
Nate screwed up. Yes. It's the brain tumor. It's the default excuse for everything.
Yeah, it is. I get the default excuse. I don't know what the hell happened to them. They were here, but then they're all gone now. Wow.
Nate clicked something.
Media assets, banners, comments.
What about that drop down to the left?
This one?
There. Yeah.
Yeah. So regular, small comments on stage. Nope. Wow. And that shows the comments on stage. Yeah, all of these are.
What'd you do, Nate?
I think so again, people, I'm gonna try to find the super chats. But if unfortunately I don't know if I can find them. So I'll let you guys.
Nate doesn't love you.
Yeah, I'll let you guys talk it out. So we'll move on to Starfleet Academy and look at that.
Yes.
Because so this is the critical
drinker.
Yeah, this is the critical drinkers breakdown of Starfleet Academy. We're gonna move to that until I can fix this. Please don't super chat anymore until I can find them or find a way to put them up, and then we can go back to that because I just want to make sure I at least get your super chats because I do want to.
Nate did it on purpose. I saw him with malicious intent in his eyes.
Exactly. He knew you guys agreed with me, and the super chats magically disappeared.
So just tell me when you guys want me to stop this from running while I try to fix this in the back.
Academy is a bit like opening a daycare center in a strip club. Yeah, I guess it could be done in theory, but man, there's a whole lot of obstacles in the way. After all, we're witnessing the final death throes of a 60-year-old franchise that survived a decade of cancellation, the end of the Cold War, and the visual and intellectual diarrhea of the J.J. Abrams movies. It's like watching your favorite long-retired boxer lumbering back into the ring for one more fight, punch-drunk and overweight and a shadow of his former self, getting completely pummeled and humiliated by an opponent half his
You need
age.
help over there, Nate?
But leave it to that bastion of hard-hitting journalism, the Mary Sue, to cheer everyone up. Wait, do they still exist? Wow. Whatever. Let us examine this fair
Displacing you,
and
Nate. I'm gonna see if I can fix this.
Okay, we're switching spots. So one of the things I noticed initially about the new was Starfleet Academy, it reminded me of that scene from the Lord of the Rings spinoff where they had like every child under the rainbow, like every color and variety of minority was present. And I'm gonna say I don't really like that. And I know that's odd coming from a guy like tokenism isn't fixed by making the whole cast tokens. It's clear that you're trying to check boxes. Well, where's the fat stupid one? Okay, where's the black gay one? Okay, where's the super strong female archetype? You know, hey, where's the trans one? Where's like if you can look at the cast and just throw a dart and this is some type of like oppressed minority, I don't think you're gonna set up a good story unless that is the context, right? But I don't. It's cringy.
No. Also, one thing I'll say about Starfleet Academy is that they seem to forget they're taking the woke world of today and imposing it on 1,000 years in the future, and that's just not the context.
It's the future, Nate.
Move over a little bit.
The future is awakened.
Yeah, but it's not. It's gotten to the point where like even the holograms are fat. It's like these are holograms.
Okay,
yeah,
with the puffs. Okay, so she's I didn't understand this because I watched two of Drinker's videos. The hologram is a person now.
I think
if it's
all right.
If the hologram is physical, is it still a hologram? How does this work? I need to watch it. Honestly, I do need to sit down.
Well, the hologram must have been designed fat. I mean, that's the only possible.
I mean, but it ate part of its badge or something like that. I have so many questions. I'm so confused about if a hologram is a cast member here, okay, can hologram Tupac still be shot? That's what I want to know. See, I'm asking the real questions. Kurt didn't even know what to say.
Yeah, so
say something about Tupac.
Yes, hologram Tupac, the one that performed on stage.
I'm going to continue to play this. Let's go.
I lost
unbiased article.
I dumped out of the conversation.
Shall we? Those dude bros mad at Starfleet Academy aren't actual Star Trek fans.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
You see, dear viewer, Starfleet Academy isn't actually an insult to Star Trek, storytelling, cinematography, character development, or even basic human dignity, and that's why the internet's been dogging on it since its release, in much the same way that Disney Star Wars is just as good as anything George Lucas ever managed to produce. Oh no, it's actually a small minority of toxic dude bros like myself and Gary who just can't accept the greatness of this show. Time and time again, we're confronted with fans of something who continue to miss the lessons within the media they're consuming. We've seen it with Star Wars, our superhero stories, and it's become an increasing problem with Star Trek fans. Oh dear, it's such a drag being media literate, isn't it?
More
recently, men like the Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, known for hating anything that seems to be left-leaning, have been dogging on Paramount Plus's slate of Star Trek shows. The issue with these right-wing figureheads talking...
I think this is probably one of the lamest excuses ever. So both Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker are fans historically of Star Trek. They have videos on their channel about it. And all of us who have watched Star Trek understand that there's tons of very progressive, very typically left-leaning, let's say, philosophies that are baked into the narrative. The issue, though, is here the big difference between the way that it was done in the past, and even with Captain Janeway and the others, it wasn't done with the refinement of a bull in a china shop. It wasn't this whole ham-fisted, there's a message, accept it. Just are you going to do, or you're a racist? It's just there's no type of the finesse, right? There's no type of subtlety to interweave it into a greater narrative to teach the lesson, if that's the goal. But that's just me.
It's funny because Star Trek wasn't political, even though they did, like in the 60s, they had the first interracial kiss and things of that nature. But it was always like, it never reminded me of how we live today. It was always how we, how things should be. And again, like body positivity in the future, I don't think would be a thing because we have replicators.
We have Ozempic.
And don't forget, like I'm thinking 1,000 years in the future, we take a pill and you'd be fine. You know what I'm saying?
Are you saying I'm not fine?
No, I'm saying I'm not fine. I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying the future to me seems to it should be a reflection of how we are now. It should be a reflection of how we should be. Because I think Gene Roddenberry said that Star Trek was essentially his version of heaven, of a utopia, right?
The thing about Star Trek was like all the races were equal. Like race was not a thing. Like no one cared. Like everyone was treated as an equal. Everyone was treated the same.
Unless you were a Klingon.
Yeah, yes, unless you were a Klingon. And meritocracy was the thing. Like everyone got to their position because of merit. Everyone was really good at their job. They weren't hired because they were black. They were hired because they were good.
I'm still trying to figure out what was the character's name for Whoopi Goldberg?
Guinan.
What's going on with her and Q? I still never understood. Like, there's some weird power struggle between them.
They leave a lot of details about Guinan's species somewhat ambiguous.
Okay, that's fair.
But she's a very long-living species, and so she has some sort of power
because Q is afraid of her to some degree.
Yeah, and she has some sort of power. It's a little ambiguous.
Okay, that's yeah. I think these are the type of questions I would love to debate and discuss, and not how does the fat hologram eat things or something.
All right, so I assumed I got all the super chats back, so I'm gonna continue to play Critical Drink and let them react to it while I just finish off this whole super chat and craziness.
About Trek is that they miss one important detail about Star Trek. It was never for them. Oh, really? Then pray tell, who exactly was it for? Because I've spent most of my life watching and enjoying Star Trek, progressive messaging and all. I grew up with it, in fact, and I've spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours online talking about my love for the movies, the Next Generation, the original series. Shit, man, I'm one of those crazy people who even enjoyed Voyager, the first Star Trek show led by a female captain, no less. But since men like these ex-personalities think they're the authority on all things nerdy, the reality is they just speak loudly and incorrectly about these franchises. Look, you can use your money to buy every Star Trek toy out there. Doesn't mean you understand what this series is saying to you. And now with the new series Star Trek Starfleet Academy, we've seen
must be only one interpretation of the media. Yeah, this is a famous issue in art, right? In art, of course, there's only one valid interpretation. Right. This is commonly accepted by all art critics everywhere. There's only one valid interpretation of the art, and if you have a different interpretation, you're wrong. That's how our interpretation works.
Racist and all this other
don't look. Homophobic.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Transphobic, fat phobic, tall phobic, pretty phobic,
competence phobic.
Got to do with Star Trek.
Sitting properly in chairs phobic.
Really? Yes.
Well, it seems like we're not the only ones who lack understanding, Mary Sue writer. See, we don't claim to be the final authority on anything. We're just people with opinions. We put those opinions out there on the internet, and we invite others to engage with them however they see fit. If those opinions are well thought out, capably argued, and backed up with knowledge and experience, then well, people tend to listen to them. The problem for you seems to be that more people agree with our opinions on Starfleet Academy than yours. Sucks to be you, I guess. But that being the case, maybe it's time you asked yourselves, why? In the great marketplace of ideas that is the internet, why are people rushing to consume ours while yours gather dust in a bargain bin? Is it perhaps because you're not being entirely honest about this show's merits and you're trying to dismiss any and all criticism of it with the tired old argument of, this was never made for you? The reality is that Star Trek was made for everyone, no matter their background or political persuasion. It was the very definition of inclusive because it presented its audience with ideas that they were invited to consider.
Awesome.
I never understood, because I've heard that with I think it was Doctor Who, where it said, well, it wasn't made for you. Well, where is the fat, gay, black, female, whatever, unicorn, helicopter identifying thing? So where does that exist in such an abundance that it's going to carry an entire franchise that historically hasn't been on whatever that specific demographic is?
Yeah.
I genuinely don't understand that.
I mean, I'll agree that Star Trek Academy was not made for me, and apparently anyone else, as far as I can tell.
I don't know. Maybe somebody can help me with this.
Guys, so I've been having issues. So I'm gonna have
it's the tumor.
No, it's just the tumor. I've had other issues.
I'm gonna get a sign. It says it's the tumor.
No, it's not the tumor. I've been having other issues. So I'm going to step off for real quick, but I'm going to have Drag and Uncivil do the whole. Well, Uncivil's going to
read some super chats for you. How about that? Yeah, I got it.
Just read them.
Your ass.
You better read them correctly.
Well, that's not guaranteed. I'll do what I can. That's fine. All right, let's read some super chats.
All right.
Our friend Nate is going. He didn't take the mic with him, did he?
No, I haven't.
Great, fantastic. Did Pretti obstruct when he helped the woman? I don't know.
If there was an active operation going on, you could kind of make that argument. But even if there was, that still doesn't mean that they need to escalate force by start pushing people.
Kurt, I still giggle about that video you did years ago about the Barney Fife sled doing that raid on the house in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, sled is special. They're fun. Oh Lord, that's the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, by the way. The state level police and. A little bit, yeah.
You saying they're incompetent?
A little, yeah.
Don't do that.
Manicure Auden said, "Hey, Nan crew, I'm prior law enforcement. Watch your breakdown last night. Well done. 2 women who approach agents are idiots."
Yeah,
that's.
I agree.
Stupid. That's fair. But I'll set it off. But ICE should have picked their battles.
Yes. Yeah. Again, thank you. A reasonable response. Yeah.
If body cam video cleared the agents, Trump would not be backing down. I don't know. That's not necessarily true. He could be backing down for political reasons.
It still looks bad.
Other reasons, yeah.
Even if it's justified, it's still there's people are dying. It's still, it's a bad look.
Oops.
Because Bavino is gone, and Human is
favorite cocktail. I always assume lawyers drink. That's a good question. Go-to cocktails for me. Old fashioned is always a good one.
Adios, motherfucker.
What?
The drink.
Oh, adios. Okay.
Yeah.
I like a martini, gin martini, stirred, straight up with olives.
Not shaken?
I usually like a 5-to-1 ratio on my gin to vermouth. So I'm a little picky. I like a London dry gin. I like ginger ale and gin. That's what I usually drink on a plane. That's very good. Those are the ones that come foremost to mind. But nothing wrong with a good old fashioned.
Yeah, no, that's classic. It's classic. There we go.
These protesters were creating a chaotic and dangerous situation. How can anyone think with constant rage-inducing whistling? How's that not relevant? Well, to the extent that the protesters were protesting in a lawful way, it's lawful.
So I think they're saying, to the greater point, if the protesters are trying to keep them up at night, right, and trying to deter them, that has larger implications on their ability to do their job. I think that's the point that they're trying to make.
Yeah, and be that as it may, it's like when you have a gun and you're using a gun.
Yeah, you're still responsible. But it to me, it adds in another layer of, we should probably take this into account, but how relevant it be in a court?
I've been in an armed protest in front of PD. You know what we didn't do? We didn't get in the cops' face and harass them. We did on the sidewalk peacefully. Yeah.
I mean, there's a way to do it, and there's a way to not get shot, but some people are just really, really desperate for bullets.
Yeah, I went to armed protests every year. It was very armed protests. When I was in Virginia, I was an executive member of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, which is a really notable pro-gun group in Virginia. They arguably do more than the NRA does, and so as an executive member of them, and like every Martin Luther King Day, they would go down to the state capitol to protest for gun rights, and there were several hundred to 1,000 of us, and the vast majority of us were armed, and it was always fun and interesting. We'd be inside the Capitol complex, and there's so many of us. Obviously, we can't use the elevators, so we're running up and down the stairs, and everyone has guns, and it was a thing. So
security nightmare.
Yeah, no, we got to go through well, they had a back entrance for the CHP holders, so you could go through. So, but you weren't allowed to bring in a knife, which also is hilarious. So, like, if you had a knife on them, right out. You can't bring in the knife, but you can bring in your gun.
It's a little loophole.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. What can you do?
Now, I'm going to say something crazy right now, literally crazy. Please stop super chatting.
Slow down.
The reason being,
I'll take your money,
is that, don't get me wrong, I'm extremely happy, but I want to be able to reach all your super chats. Now, even though you sent in a super chat, it's always been the policy, doesn't mean it's going to be read. But I want to try to read them all. We're going to try to run through this. Now, if you want to see us read super chats, please stay. But we actually have something else that we had planned to do. So we have about a half an hour left. So again, I appreciate, I love all the super chats. We're going to try to read them, answer them all. But please stop sending them, because if you keep sending them, it's going to keep us here forever. So go ahead, Kurt. Let's run through them. Let's try to make it out.
Read fast.
Yeah, great. Who fired the first shot? Unclear, but yeah, we're doing what we can.
Greedo.
What's ICE culpability if DHS acknowledges that P320 has issuing and ICE issues that weapon? First of all, if the government is issuing the defective SIG to their people, we need to have a whole separate set of discussions. Yeah. But well, if they knew about it and were aware about it and issued anyway, that's even more of a problem.
Then the government would be culpable for that.
That's more of a bad issue.
That's a huge lawsuit waiting.
SIG may wind up drowning in this. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
Take a poll. Does Starfleet Academy sucks? I don't think we need a poll for that one. I think we got it. Holly Campbellton said, "You haven't seen the video of the first warning telling Pretti to get the stream being shoved. Well, it may be relevant or not, huh?"
I did see that. I did.
Was it massively informative?
No, it was. So it was the first where they pushed it about the street and he's on the sidewalk, but then they go back, right? Because people forget. So after that, when they push him to go off the sidewalk, all the agents, after whatever they do, they get back into their car, and it's the one agent who's arguing with the women who doesn't get in the car to drive off. He actually gets out and starts pushing the women. So, so I would say it's informative that they did have some type of words before, but I think it's irrelevant to the later shooting, but we do have to take it in consideration. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, that's if Pretti flagged the guy or threatened him with the weapon during that exchange, but he didn't do anything like that. Yeah. So there was no actual escalation.
What are the legal ramifications, if any, if the P320 fired by itself? Yeah, if it turns out that SIG fired first and led to this, I think SIG can and should drown in it.
You really don't like them?
Well, because it's an issue that they've known about for a while. Like, this isn't a first thing. Like, if it was the first time ever, it was just a defective gun, that's sad, but not super duper sad. If it winds up being the gun that they've been on notice about for God knows how long at this point, that somehow misfired and led to all this, Sig Sauer should drown in it. It may be the end of Sig Sauer. Sig Sauer should drown. They have it coming if that winds up being what's going on. I'll tell you what. JT Brown 51 says, "Listen, folks, if we want to hold our political leaders accountable for seditious conspiracy with their signal chats, we also need to hold law enforcement to high standards." Yep.
Equally, yeah.
Holding people to standards is good. When Pretti resisted and eventually sat up, you can see his hand move towards the area with his guns holstered. Does that play into why he was shot? Maybe. I'm not sure that that's what's being shown there or not.
If that actually does, because I think a lot of people kind of see that. But the officer who shot him would have had to have seen that and said that was my justification, and also have not seen his colleague clear the weapon from behind Pretti's back.
Yeah. Corn Flake fan says that sounds a lot like Totality Situation. Wasn't there recent spat about that? Well, if you're referring to Felix v. Barnes, yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that case. What was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, last year.
Last year? So yeah, you have to go to the totality of the circumstances. Now, what totality of the circumstances means, in the term, the time frame of it is going to be a little bit open to dispute. But it's like, okay, could what happened 4 minutes earlier be helpful totality? It could be, but it's like, what exactly happened and what was the nature of that? So, yeah, it's possible.
But just the color of the totality of the circumstances, it's different for each event. For instance, like with Kyle Rittenhouse, for instance, like an hour before,
yeah, it was
the guy.
I think it was a couple
hours before. The guy actually threatened Kyle Rittenhouse.
It says like,
and
if
there were
I see,
witnesses.
it's like, if I see you, I'm going to kill you. So
yes,
that's informative.
That's informative, and think about how important that is to the totality of the circumstances. But we also have to understand too, not everything, because the Supreme Court is very clear. The totality of the circumstances doesn't mean you have to, you have to say, okay, this matters. You have to also take into account the reasonableness and whether it's relevant or not.
It's
because
not
relevancy,
it's not just one linchpin that you're waiting on.
Exactly.
To justify it.
Because the moment of the shooting may be determinative, right? That may be the determinative factor, but it says you can't just focus on that alone. You got to look at the entire context, and that just makes sense, right? We look at the entire context. So sometimes, if you say, like people are saying, Pretti got into officers a week before. Well, that could be totality if these were the same officers, right?
It all goes to
that would go that.
It all goes to the officer's knowledge, because in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, Kyle Rittenhouse knew that because it was said to him. So it formed his mental state, because it goes to his subjective fear, right? Because we talked about the subjective and objective frame. So when a couple hours earlier, someone says, if I see you again, I'm going to kill you. And then a couple hours later, we see him and things are happening. That goes to his subjective knowledge or his subjective fear. That's why it's relevant to the circumstance. What happened, 4 minutes ago or a week ago isn't relevant unless it somehow informs the subjective or objective framework of the officer, or what the officer would be aware of or have reason to know. So it's not, it doesn't really fold into it for that reason. So, but yeah, this is what we do over here. Just Rhonda says, I just want to tell Nate that apologizing in the live stream with Bronco and Joe is a big show of humility. I had unsubbed from your channel before I saw you come back. All subbed again. See, there you go.
Oh,
okay. You picked up a sub, man.
Well, listen, thank you, and for everyone, thank you for bearing with me, because again, I know things have been a little chaotic recently, but thank you guys so much for staying with me. I really appreciate it.
Century 21 channel is a prior video Pretti at VA. Okay. If it's at the VA, I'm not sure how that's necessarily relevant, but okay.
Unless he's threatening all, and then again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Zero Chill says, I saw someone arguing that Minnesota has a duty to retreat law. Pretti should retreat knowing he was armed. Thoughts? We're not. This has nothing to do with Pretti, because Pretti isn't the one. Duty to retreat applies to the use of force. So
right. That's
Pretti wasn't using force, so there's no duty to retreat.
There was a case a few years, about 10 years ago. There was a black woman that was arrested, and people were saying that she could have used the stand your ground law. I don't know if you guys remember that case, but the people brought up that it's not the same thing with what's his name, Zimmerman, because she had a duty to retreat. The black woman in question, when she got in a dispute with her male partner, kids were there. She went out to her car, went out to the garage, got her weapon, came back and fired the weapon at her male partner, but the kids were standing right next to him. So she had a duty to retreat, but she tried to say, well, I felt threatened, whatever. It's like, no, you had a duty to retreat. You didn't do that. You went and then escalated the situation with a firearm. So no, you don't get to say stand your ground.
You know what? I do think it'll be interesting. Well, now that I've taken back over, I think it'll be interesting, because I think Colin Noor, he's got a piece here that I want to actually play, because I think it'll answer a lot of these questions. So I'm going to just put his video up real quick, the one that we watched earlier, and I think I agree with his assessment from this. So, and I want to see if you guys agree, and I want to see if the people here agree, because they haven't seen this yet. So check it out.
Yes, under Minnesota law, he was legally allowed to carry a firearm. He was legally allowed to bring that firearm to a protest. Minnesota statute 624.7142 does not prohibit carrying a firearm at a protest. That part is not debatable. Was it smart to bring a gun to a protest where you know tensions are high and federal agents are present and put yourself to protect the right? Because at the end of the day, legally allowed to carry a firearm. Yes. Under Minnesota law, he was legally allowed to carry a firearm. He was legally allowed to bring that firearm to a protest. Minnesota statute 624.7142 does not prohibit carrying a firearm at a protest. That part is not debatable. Was it smart to bring a gun to a protest where you know tensions are high and federal agents are present and put yourself in the middle of an interaction? I wouldn't do that shit. But whether something is smart and whether something is legal are two completely different conversations, and people keep collapsing them on purpose.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this clearly, because this is the core 2A issue. Simply having a firearm on you does not make you a criminal. Simply having 2 magazines does not make you a criminal. It does not mean you're planning a mass shooting. For Christ's sake, you got people in the gun industry who would literally say, if you don't carry a spare mag, you're doing it wrong. Nothing about his behavior gave me mass shooter vibes. Nothing about his demeanor gave me aggressor. And honestly, the license argument doesn't even matter as much as people think it does. Yes, we know he had a license, but even if we didn't know that in the moment, simply possessing a firearm does not automatically turn you into a criminal. Besides, they weren't restraining him because he had a gun. They didn't even know he had a gun until he was on the ground. You may not like the fact that he was protesting ICE. That still does not strip him of his Second Amendment rights any more than if someone who is pro-ICE went to protest against the protesters while carrying their gun.
Preach it.
Yeah, and he has a point. He has a point. That's because I see that argument a lot. Yeah, he had a gun. Why would he bring it? Yeah, okay, fine. It does sort of. It's. I feel the same way to the folks that over where I live, where they bring a firearm into IHOP with them, and they just do it. But I know my cousin does that as well. But he's a cop. Like he's still a cop even when he's off duty. So I understand why he does it, but it doesn't make you a criminal. How you utilize it or how you intend on utilizing it, that's when the criminality comes into play.
The Second Amendment is for everybody, not just people you agree with, not just people who vote like you, not just people who make you comfortable. If your belief in the Second Amendment disappears the second the person carrying a gun isn't on your team, then do you actually believe in the Second Amendment? Now, let's talk about what actually happened in the video. From what I saw, it looked like he was filming 2 women who were actively agitating the officer, blowing whistles, getting in his face, escalating the situation. From my perspective, it looked like documentation, not participation. I don't know if he told them to stop. I don't know if he tried to de-escalate verbally. All I can tell you is what it looked like to me from the footage.
Any comments? What do you think about that?
No, I agree. It looks like he's not trying to actively go and protest. He's just trying to figure out what's going on, because he wasn't with the 2 women over there clearly because he's on the opposite side of the street. But it does look like he's just trying to keep an eye on, like a First Amendment auditor. That's honestly what when I first saw this, I was like, oh, he's doing the First Amendment auditing stuff. Okay, fine. That's not illegal. Filming the police, not illegal. Filming ICE, not illegal. But the fact that he was annoying the ICE agents, I think that was the only crime he had committed.
And yes, those whistles were annoying as hell. They annoyed me just watching the video. But annoyance is not illegality. Blowing whistles is actually protected speech under the First Amendment.
And I'm surprised, like, so many people don't understand that. Like, it is protected speech under this, like, case law on this.
But then a lot of people also don't know that flag burning is protected as well.
Texas v. Johnson, baby.
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
At the same time, I also saw the agent pushing one of the women to the ground. Was that legally justified?
That doesn't feel necessary.
Was he enforcing something specific?
He could have stiff-armed her.
I'm not going to pretend I know just to make people feel better. Now, the dynamic clearly changed when the guy stepped between the agent and the woman after she went down. Do I think he was trying to be malicious? It looked to me like he was just trying to protect someone who had just fallen. Did that decision introduce risk, especially while he was armed? Yes.
Let me tell you something.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something right now with that. I agree with Colin. We just had a whole decade of women saying, "Hey, don't interfere with us, leave us alone," and all the other kind of stuff. So the fact that he was doing that, it wouldn't have been me, right? But especially for people who are armed and already pissed off, I would have said, "Hey, look, y'all should probably back up and leave them the hell alone." But people won't fuck around and find out. So hey,
And here's where the 2A reality kicks in. You have a right to protest. You have a right to carry a firearm, even at a protest. Protests can turn violent. You still have to get back to your car. You still have to go home, all that shit. You're not any more safer at a protest. If I were protesting something, chances are I'd be carrying too, because I can legally do that. But I'm not going to engage federal agents while they're working.
That's
and
a bad
I'm
idea.
definitely not stepping between a federal agent while he's actively
but this
pushing
is like,
someone else.
I think
That agent
last time
doesn't
we
know
were,
me
pause for a second. When last time I was here, I think I was like, hey, you know, if you really think that that's going to work out, you go and step in between a federal agent, a federal person of any stripe, of any uniform, while they're trying to do their job. It's not going to end well. I'm pretty sure I said that last week. And yeah, so I'm like, that's. But for those of you who heard me say that, this is what I was talking about. By the way, stuff like this happens.
My intentions. So I'm not risking it. When I carry a gun, I have two personalities, Pussy and John Wick. I'm the most passive person in the world when I'm carrying a gun. But if someone is trying to kill me or someone I love, you get to meet John Wick. When you
So let me go to his legal analysis, because he gives a legal analysis. I'm just going to move it to its legal analysis.
on the trigger, cold conditions, movement during a struggle, and negligently discharge the gun. 2, an officer disarms him, moves away. Questions are,
In total, the agents fire 10 shots in 5 seconds.
the real questions are, who caused it? And why did the shooting continue afterwards? There are 2 plausible scenarios. 1, an officer draws under stress, finger on the trigger, cold conditions, movement during a struggle, and negligently discharge the gun. 2, an officer disarms him, moves away with the firearm, and then negligently discharges it while trying to secure it. Those 2 scenarios lead to very different conclusions. If the first shot came from the officer moving away with the gun, it's still negligence. But maybe they can argue how other agents might believe that lethal force was being used against them and they just reacted. Still negligent, but if the first shot came from the officer with his finger on the trigger and he knew it was a negligent discharge and then continued firing, at that point, we're no longer just talking about negligence. We're talking about something fundamentally different. And this is where the law matters, not vibes, not politics. Under Graham v. Connor and Tennessee v. Garner.
What is that? Graham v. What was that case?
They say Graham v. Connor. Graham v. Connor.
Graham v. Connor. Is that relevant at all?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, but he works in the field. Anybody who works in the field is using Graham v. Connor. It's not, and again, Bronca, unfortunately, he just doesn't know this. He doesn't understand this. And it's good because I think he gives a great presentation. He talks well, but he just doesn't, he's legally ignorant to this particular presence of the law. Not to say that when it comes to personal self-defense, because to be honest with you, if it's a self-defense from a civilian where I use force, I think Bronca, he wrote the book on it. But it's incredibly different when you're talking about law enforcement agencies' use of force in this context.
Deadly force is judged under the 4th Amendment's objective reasonableness standard.
Graham v.
Officer
Connor.
by officer, second by second. A gun existing is not the same thing as a gun being a threat.
Preach it.
A holstered firearm, once removed and controlled, changes the legal math immediately. Another officer yelling gun or even an accidental discharge does not automatically authorize everyone in the scene to open fire. That's not my opinion. That's just law.
Any disagreement?
Nope.
No, is that case law? There's a case law for that, right?
I'm sure
there's case law, but he's right though. He's absolutely right. Somebody yelling gun doesn't give you. There needs to be more, and that's what we were saying earlier.
I mean, every federal agent, I'm going to presume, receives training on how to use a weapon in adverse conditions. That we have, it's called up-down drills. There's target discrimination practices that always go through. So I think that's the one thing that a lot of people are kind of hinging this on. Hey, these guys should be trained. I can't speak for the training, right? I've not been trained by them, but I've been trained by the federal government at some point in time in my life. So it's presumed that they've also had some target discrimination training.
I'll say this too. Kyle Rittenhouse had really great trigger discipline.
Yeah, no.
His trigger discipline was like off the charts.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Until we know, 1, who fired the first shot, whether it was negligent, and what each officer actually perceived, I'm not going to pretend certainty. All I can give you are contingencies. If this, then that. If not this, then something else. And I refuse to let this get hijacked into an ICE debate. I'm talking about guns. I'm talking about rights. I'm talking about constitutional consistency. From that perspective, here's where I land. He did not lose his rights because of his politics. He did not lose his rights because of where he protested. He did not lose his rights because he carried a gun. But bad decisions, bad training, bad reactions, and bad assumptions stacked on top of each other one by one, and someone ended up dead. None of this shit looks good. Not the agitation, not the interference, not the anti-gun rhetoric, not the negligent discharge, not the follow-up shots, not the rush to tribalism. And if that doesn't bother you, no matter what side you're on, something is wrong. One thing's for certain.
All right, now he's going to his ad.
I agree. He's saying basically the same thing I am.
Yeah.
I mean, we might potentially split partially on like finer points or like, but he's like doing exactly what I'm doing. It's like, if this, then this, if this, then this. He's doing kind of the same thing I am. So yeah, we broadly agree.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand. But I understand what folks are saying out there too. We're taking the totality of everything. Then, hey, this officer is operating under duress, but that is part of the job. But it also is a human aspect to that. That hey, look, everybody has a breaking point, and so what is the culture that within these circles that would allow something like this to happen? Because there's all type of questions you can ask about it, but there's a lot of other factors that just sort of makes all this worse.
Yep. Let's run through the super chats. If the body cam video was exculpatory to the agents, we probably would have seen it already. I agree. Who sets the limits on what impeding is? Well, the Eighth Circuit. I think I brought this up. I've looked up the Eighth Circuit doctrine on the particular statute you're talking about, 18 U.S.C. Section 111, and there is a requirement of force. The Eighth Circuit with Minnesota they require forcible, sometimes either the threat of force, where the person is threatening, if you come at me, I'm going to beat you up, something like that, or the person actually makes contact and is pushing you. That's impeding. But in this particular case, when the officers were trying to get away, there was no impeding at that time. They weren't blocked. Because even you can get impeding even if you're sitting there blocking the car. But the requirement of force is necessary in the Eighth Circuit under that particular law. So yeah, if even without the element of force, you don't have impeding in the Eighth Circuit particularly. I can look up the case, but I've looked up the case law. Technically, a pedestrian cannot linger in the street, right? Technically, yes, but federal agents can't enforce that because they can only arrest them on federal law. If they were local police, yes, right? Local police could pull them over for a red light, could stop them from in the street. But federal agents don't have that authority. They can't arrest someone for a traffic violation.
They can physically move you. Absolutely. They can physically move you out of because if there's something going on, but you can't be charged with a crime because federal agents don't have that type of authority.
He worked in the ICU. He can react to situations calmly, professionally. He chose to carry a weapon into the situation, volatile and unpredictable.
Well, all I have to say to that is this one over here, because you are now saying the Second Amendment and First Amendment can't go together at the same time. And like, you fake yourself.
Thank you for this. Thank you for becoming a member. What if the officer heard gun, 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 which we did see, lucked down, saw an empty holster and assumed that Pretti had pulled the gun and had it in his hand at the moment of the shoot? That's extremely I think that's well thought out. I think this is a well-placed super chat. But again, that's why it's important to see the body camera footage, because the body camera footage gives you that perspective. And the officer, after the shoot, they interview these officers, and he would have had to have said that. So I don't know what the officer told the investigators right after the shoot, but I think to this, and this goes to my point, the fact that the officer didn't even see, from what I could tell, the weapon being cleared, because you would think if the weapon being cleared, you would keep an eye on it, right, as it's being moved out. But yeah, I don't think he saw it at all. Next, people in the chat explaining to 3 lawyers.
2 lawyers.
No. People are they're asking questions, and that's what we're here to do. We love answering these questions. What if the evidence comes out that the officer knew about Pretti's past acts, specifically, i.e.,
that would help.
That would help. Yeah. We've been saying that all the time. If they knew, but it's on. They would have to say, we knew this.
I think here. So I see what people are getting at with that, because we talk about this before we go live. If Pretti and that particular agent had a run-in like an hour ahead of time, And the officer said, you know what? Hey, I'm sick of this guy. I'm tired. I've already been patient with him, but I'm done. You could say that played a role in it, but we would need evidence of that there has to be something like with the Kyle Rittenhouse situation where that guy threatened him directly an hour ahead of time. Like, so he knew that unequivocally, this guy's a threat to me. He needs to be neutralized given this situation.
Not standing in the street waving traffic. Why was that a problem from the perspective of the federal officers? Why was that a problem? How did it stop, impede, delay, interfere? Maybe it did. Maybe there was a problem with it, but it's not immediately obvious.
If it was a convoy, let's say if there was a convoy or something like that, then you could make that argument that, yeah, he's impeding. But if there's no active convoy that's being, because they could drive around him, like that's possible. But it's
and even if it's illegal, again, it's like I feel like a lot of you guys are clutching at straws. Like, I have to be honest with you guys. Let's assume that somehow what he was doing in the street was illegal. What does that have to do with the shooting? I mean, guys, are we really at this point? How desperate are some of you people to make this a righteous shoot? Oh my God, he was in the middle of the street.
He had a gun.
That's what but it's
a week before he got into a tussle with ICE. What are you guys doing over there?
No, this is again, this is the same thing like the Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? He had a gun, automatically he's a murderer. No, we got to think about this. Oh, look, it's so wild to see the arguments just totally switch. Just
2 weeks after
right?
2 weeks after the Kyle Rittenhouse incident, Kyle Rittenhouse was at a bar because his lawyers took him there to meet some Proud Boys, and he said something along the lines of, something like, my sister was threatened, or if she was threatened, I defend it. And the prosecutor wanted to use that evidence to go to his mental state 2 weeks earlier. And we're like, fuck no.
Yeah,
and the judge said, fuck no, because what does this have to do with anything? It doesn't have anything to do with the price of tea in China. Judge Schroeder was right. Be like Judge Schroeder.
It will be interesting if this goes to court. I think it's going to court. As a matter of fact, I don't know how it doesn't, unless they just straight up cover it up, because they would have to justify this not going.
Going into witness protection.
A lot of truth will come out. We learned a lot of truth in the Rittenhouse case. Yeah. I do believe in stress and loss of sleep. I just disagree why they couldn't sleep. I believe they started to watch Kurt's cooking videos and started having nightmares. Shot. So if the state police aren't there to enforce state and local laws, like standing in traffic, ICE just have to let them, even for safety purposes.
Yeah.
Well,
unless it's interfering with the ICE operation in some way.
All right. So
convoy.
Yeah. So the difference here, I'll give you the mic. The difference here that then Renee Good. We all agree Renee Good was a clean shoot. And the reason why we all agree Renee Good is a clean shoot, because she was physically blocking ICE. She was physically stopping them from doing their job, right? They placed a car in the street and then waved them around. And when they were asked to leave, they didn't leave. And the ICE officers did say, get out of the car, making clear commands that get out the car because they were going to arrest them. And when they heard those verbal commands, instead of complying with those lawful verbal commands, she turned the car, hit the gas, and hit an agent. That is a totally different scenario than what we have here, because those agents weren't being blocked, they weren't being threatened, and the protesters learned from the Renee Good thing. Don't stand in front of these cars because they can be hitting you. So that's what I think the difference is. Yes, if they were in front of the car and they were doing that, they could move them. There would be safety. But in this particular instance, if they're just standing in the street blowing whistles and they are not impeding you in any way, there's nothing you can do unless you're authorized by the state to be able to make an arrest under state law. And ICE agents and Border Patrol are not. Does the number of times he was shot have an impact on the officer's part in intent and bearing an intent? Well, it all depends if they were successive shots.
Which one?
No, well, I would say, let's say it was a accidental discharge. Then I think you have probably a clear.
So if the SIG went off,
yeah, then you have
say that. Okay.
Then you're responding to a deadly threat. But and a matter of times only really matters if you have a pause in the action, breaking the action. Because what was the name of the case? The Plumhoff case. where a cop shot 15 times in 10 seconds and killed the person.
I don't know the name of the case.
I think it might be Plumhoff. It may be a different case, but there's a case in where the cop shot 15 times in 10 seconds. Maybe 15 times in 10 seconds.
I know you're right. I just can't remember the name of the case.
But even in that, the court essentially said it's going to be treated as one use of force as long as the shots are continuous, consecutive, and there's no break in the action. Ba 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 ba. You're responding to the threat in real time. So the number of shots, like if you're doing a mag clip after the threat went away and you're just doing a mag dump, then that makes it a whole totally different situation. Whenever you would like to let me know. Oh, that's what.
I'll read it. Always appreciate the unbiased legal breakdown. These issues are always nuanced and complex. Critical thinking requires proper perspective.
Yep.
Roddenberry has strict fitness standards for the original series due to reasoning that medical technology and diet fixed obesity. And also cussing was considered primitive and unenlightened.
Nice.
But that's true, though, because they're not using the language you use today. And matter of fact, they're even using curse words 1,000 years from now. Like if you look at the way language is, English from 1,000 years ago, you wouldn't be able to recognize. Like we wouldn't be able to understand it. It's that different than the English that we have today. Because
father is a gutter snipe.
Yeah, it was like I was looking at the generalist papers and he was doing like the history of English, and he starts and goes through and was like, and you see like how it just changed so dramatically. So yeah, so I think they even use douchebag in the new Star Trek series. There are no douchebags. It's been 1,000 years. I don't think women are still using douchebags in Star Trek, right?
Last time you've heard a woman be called a strumpet?
Yep, not really in my vocab. Yeah.
I just so happen to know a lot of those words.
Nate DeLaura would consider doing a video on a peaceful assembly that was constantly protected. I like to share your voice on them. What's it? On a peaceful assembly that was constantly protected. Yes. All right. I'll consider it. I'll consider it. I'd have to figure out which one. If the first cop was unlawful, then the next cop knew he was acting unlawfully. No. I don't. No.
How would the officer know that?
Thank you. You would have to show that the officer knew, because the second officer for the second series of shots would have had to have said, you know what, I'm just going to mag dump in this guy. Like he told his colleague, hey, I'm just going to shoot this guy. Fuck it. Like you would have to demonstrate that he knew that, because all that officer knew, this guy could be still reaching for a gun. Because mind you, gun doesn't mean that, there's just 3 guns or just 1 gun. Nobody knows, right? So the second series of shot was clearly based on the first series of shots. So obviously there's going to have to be an investigation, but you would have to demonstrate that second officer knew certain things, which is hard.
Trump is not backing down. Every illegal immigrant must commit multiple other felonies to live and work in the United States. Crimes like tax evasion, fraud, and identity theft. All right, so you're saying if they're living here, they can't pay taxes. All right, I get it. In other words, just being here illegally is one part of it, but then you have all the other illegal activity because they've got some type of income.
They can pay taxes. I promise you, the IRS will cash their check.
No, but the fact that they aren't paying taxes, you say, the left has won. Everyone keeps saying ICE when it was Border Patrol. That's true. We've been saying ICE, but it's we should say federal agents. Yeah. There are 2 different components, but no one wants to get rid of CBP, just ICE. That's true.
It doesn't really matter.
That's true.
Fair.
But they were on an ICE operation, so I think that's also important too. Federal report says 2 Border Patrol agents fired their weapons. No negligent discharge. Well,
there goes that argument.
Yeah. So let me see. Yeah, just 2, and no negligent discharge. All right. I don't know. I think Colin made it good. Nate, why are you using facts to make good legal arguments for your case? Shouldn't you stand outside cold and cry for 12 minutes like legal? Yes.
That's actually not the worst idea I've ever heard. Maybe for today's video, but we have no snow. Maybe I could fake it. I'll put up a green screen and borrow Legal Eagle's background and make a video. When I watched Legal Eagle's video today, I couldn't film it in my studio. See how sad it made me.
Oh man,
maybe I'll do that.
Thank you, Action Justice Warren. Thank you so much. Now it's debatable whether he should be considered a predator. he is. Protester. Sorry, Predator. But again, I can't see. So let me see, because like he said, I only got one eye. Which thank you for telling everybody. Again. Yeah.
Remember from earlier? It's a tumor.
Oh yeah, it's a tumor. It's a tumor. It's a tumor. It's a tumor. I think I have that for the next 6 months, but then it's going to run its course now. So he is a part of an organized group taking shifts, actively obstructing law enforcement. Do you have the right to obstruct? No, you have the right to organize protests, from the civil rights movement to COVID protests to Black Lives Matter protests. Yes, you have a right to organize. Matter of fact, it's a constitutional right to organize. Yeah, the symbol, and peacefully though. So you're right. I don't believe you. Well, I believe you have a right to obstruct. You just don't have a right to obstruct illegally, right?
Let me give you guys an example. And by the way, I don't know who thought I was a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. These two guys are lawyers. I'm just a guy. So I want you to keep something in mind. There are protests outside of federal buildings all the time. They're called military installations. If you go to Okinawa right now, there's a protest outside of one of the the Marines installation. And they can do that. Technically, that's American soil around that area, but they can do that as long as it doesn't get to a certain level. There has to be an escalation. Someone like has a Molotov cocktail, somebody's firing off shots or something. Something has to go over that edge in order for it to be criminal in nature, right? So there is a line in the sand, right? There's obviously stuff you can and can't do, especially like what we're gonna say, like casing a federal building. Like if you are seen or are suspected of casing, that's like walking back and forth at the same time every day, you can be approached, but you can't necessarily be arrested unless it's demonstrable that you're up to some nefarious means and some conspiracy or something.
Yeah, I think people fail to realize there's a difference between something being illegal and something just being unpopular or something that you just don't like. Blowing the whistles, again, is very annoying and I don't like it, but it's constitutionally protected. I don't like these people are protesting it, but it's constitutionally protected. I don't like the fact that this guy took a gun to this protest, but it's constitutionally protected. And if we don't protect his ability and their ability to do that, guess what? When it's on the other side and the Democrats in office and telling you to take a shot and put it in your arm, then they're going to be using these same tactics against you. So don't forget, the shoe does go to the other foot sometimes.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of you guys bending over backwards this hard to justify a lot of the Jan 6 prosecutions, for example. I don't remember you trying to bend over backwards to say how right the police were for all those Jan 6 arrests. Yeah.
Thank you for coming a member. Thank you for becoming a member. When they yelled gun, had something in his hand, does that make a difference? Yeah, that could definitely make a difference. I do believe that makes a big difference. I think he had the phone in his hand because, again, it's a dynamic situation. We're talking about split-second decisions, and somebody yells gun, and you see something black in someone's hand. That does make a difference, but it all depends. Again, that's why the body cams are going to be important, because if his hands are above his head, and that's why we said we just need more information. Again, we just need more. So, but yeah, this is a great comment.
About 6 years ago, there was a police shooting of about 6 years ago. I want to say there was a police shooting. Might have been in South Carolina. I can't remember exactly where, but the cop stopped because he thought the kid had a gun in his hand. The kid had a phone, but it just so happened to be the color and the shape. Like there's some plausible deniability with some of that, but if you do have something in your hand that resembles or could resemble a firearm, it is reasonable to suspect that. But again, that a body cam would definitely help because you're going to be facing what you're looking at. So, but then it's up to a jury to determine that.
Chaotic situation created by protesters led to this.
In part,
I would say agree, but I do think you have to also understand the escalation of force. The officers, and I'm saying this from the videos I see, the officers are the first ones to attack.
They instigated
the right.
Yeah.
These people didn't push and attack the officers. The officers are the ones who attacked them, and they were responding to the force against them. So unless the officers unless we wanted to ignore that fact and just cleanly say everything the officers did was okay, then I think I think that would be the wrong assumption because, well, I think that'd be the wrong factual conclusion because the officer started laying hands on them first. This was an opposite way around. Self-defense cannot be done retroactively. That's true. But don't forget also too that we were looking at federal law, and federal law doesn't allow you the right to resist. Some states do allow you the right to resist in unlawful arrest. Federal law doesn't do that. But federal law does allow self-defense against what's known as unreasonable force because they say it would avoid beatings by police. So if a police officer is using unreasonable force, then but it has to be objectively unreasonable. And so it's a very high standard for a civilian. But if the force is objectively unreasonable against you, then you could use proportional force to stop that threat. For instance, as an example, let's say the police get a call of a bank robbery and you're walking out of the bank and you see a police come and start going for their gun, and then you go for your gun and shoot the officer first. Now, the officer would have been justified because he thinks you're maybe the bank robber, right, coming out the bank. But you're not robbing the bank. They would maybe have been in the wrong location. So you, because you see this unreasonable use of force, you've responded and killed the officer. So you would get a jury instruction saying, well, in this particular case, if you reasonably believe that officer was using unjustified force in that moment against you, which it's true, that force would have been unjustified in that moment. But again, it's a factual determination for a jury. So it is possible to get that jury instruction. You'll still be prosecuted, but at least the jury will get the bite at the apple to say, well, he was responding to a deadly force threat that was unjustified in that moment against him. Now, the officer, again, if you've noticed, the officer in that case would also be justified because of the circumstances. So it's the Kyle Rittenhouse and Gage Goldsworth thing, where both sides can be justified and have reasonable beliefs.
There's a higher standard on one end, right? Both are culpable, but there's a different standard.
I understand Pretti was legally carrying, and I do believe the CBP agent, was overly aggressive. As a CCW member, I would never get between them. Yeah. But again, what's smart and what's illegal is two different things. It's simple. If he never had the gun, no one would have yelled gun, gun, gun. If Kyle Rittenhouse never had the gun, right? We can play this out. If Kyle Rittenhouse never had the gun,
we don't want to get to the point. And I know Kurt's going to agree. We don't want to get to the point that possessing a firearm is akin to criminality. We never want to, because that starts to tread on the Second Amendment quite clearly, right? If the very possession of a firearm does not mean you had intent on using it.
I refuse to accept that me lawfully exercising my Second Amendment right is playing a stupid game, especially when it comes to the government, because the Second Amendment protects me from the government.
It's not like
that doesn't make any sense.
And you're right. He would still be here, but in a Kyle Rittenhouse case, 3 people would still be here. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Everybody wants the magic bullet, but there is none, I think, in this case. So how is Renee Good impeding exactly? She literally went in the middle of the street and moved it back and forth to stop the officer. She physically, she was physically impeding. It's like it wasn't like this is not even a question. That's what they were there to do. And by waving around the ICE officers at one at a time, that was physically impeding ICE.
Okay, so if you don't think that that's impeding, okay, the next time you see an ambulance coming down the street, I want you to put your vehicle perpendicular to the street, and I want you to see what happens, right? They can go around you, but the police officer tailing them is going to pull you over, and you're going to get charged. That you can say just because somebody can be avoided doesn't mean they're not. Though what's it called? A speed bump is an obstruction. An obstruction does not have to mean full stop. It can mean simply akin to an impediment. Mm-hmm. But so you have to understand there's a technical legal definition, and then there's a common sort of layman understanding of it. And as a layman, I'm trying to draw that out. And do I have that correct?
Yeah, it would be also similar to, suppose there was a building that had 3 sets of entrances, and the cops are trying to get through the doors, and you being one guy, bar one set of doors, because you're only one guy. So the cops could theoretically get through the other 2 sets. Are you impeding them? Of course you are, because you're impeding their entrance to the ability to get through. So it's like, yeah, it's impeding.
And you got to understand the physical nature of the of it has to be there, and or the threat the threat of the physical nature of it. So that's Eighth Circuit. That's Eighth Circuit law. I always thought it was weird that Cap Cisco, right? Cisco was so focused on race relations in the 24th century.
Can't all be winners.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
waving traffic through
right.
ongoing operations in the street and impeding ops or representing danger to agents. Lady didn't stop when told, and she can't, and officer can't remove.
Okay.
So hold on, waving traffic through ongoing operations in the street could impede ops. No, it does impede ops, and it's physically, remember, there's this physical element that you have to overcome or represent danger to the agents. And you don't have to represent, you just have to, the physical impeding, that's enough to be charged with the misdemeanor. So that's what it is. Lady didn't stop when told, true. The officer can't.
Okay, so a federal uniformed individual for the federal government can physically move you from a location of an active operation. Okay, correct. They cannot, however, and this is what I want to make very clear, they cannot arrest you or charge you at all. You can be restrained, you can be held, and then the local police, law enforcement, whoever, constable would have to then come and get you because there's a liaison between the federal and state authorities.
Yeah, I think like this one says, to be clear, the news report said that he was part of a group that locked the suspect in the building, offering to avoiding arrest prior to the shooting. Well, I would like to, I've not seen that, but that would also be, it would inform, but then again, I don't know.
It doesn't get you very far because it's like, okay, now you have him guilty of a crime, you know, for whatever. It's like, but you still, how's that relevant to the shooting? It doesn't really get you very far.
No, the person who shot him, CBP officer, would have had to have this information ahead of time.
Even if he had the information, it doesn't get him very far.
Yeah, it would still, you would have to say, how did this play into the mental calculus that led to the shooting? Like, you have to connect these two things clearly and not just causally.
Nate, as part of your argument that federal agents did not have authority to arrest Pretti and the two women in that circumstance, yes, I don't see the violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 111 because they weren't physically force is some type of force required, and there wasn't any physical impediment there. But local police could, yes, because local police
have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
Actually, so I want to make this point. I just thought about this. Every time you've seen other protesters in the vicinity of CBP and ICE, have you seen them push people or have you seen them walk up to people with their hand up or shooing them away? You've seen a certain level of force that was commensurate with what was displayed. Now, once the crowd or an individual becomes more hostile and they escalate, then you can see dispersal agents and other things being used in accordance with the escalation of force. They can't just decide, well, you know what, I'm going to go for a shooing to a pushing arbitrarily. That's a big no-no.
I like this question. At what point does loud noise cross the line from protected speech to intent to harm by deafening or disorientating? Still a bad shoot. Well, I would say this: if you could show whatever they were doing, that, you know, like for instance, some sonic device that gave a physical injury to the officers, now we're talking about a different story. Now we're talking about something different, right?
Yeah, and civilians don't have access to that type of stuff. So if you would have to really like a loud bullhorn in an agent's ear that like to make his head ring or something like that, but I doubt many of them are going to stand there and take that or be that close to an agent to begin with. So
Are you on board with the physical injury aspect of it? If there's a physical injury from the whistle or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
He's got tinnitus.
The governor. Oh, sorry. I'm reading it. The governor of Michigan has armed protesters in front of the state house every day, even after two of them attempted to kill her. What? It's the other protesters' right to protest while armed. Oh, interesting. I didn't know. Regarding the officer who did the shoot at Pretti, what legal liability, if any, might he face? Kurt is probably best for this one.
Man 2. Man 1.
I don't know. Yeah, it's unclear. You'd be looking to some sort of accessory after the fact, maybe, but it's not clear those officers in the first instance would have any liability if they didn't fire. So my gut instinct would say probably none.
Man 3.
Let me see. Isn't time and manner an issue? Yes. For example, say SWAT is about to execute an warrant. Would it be considered obstruction to stand near the officer screaming and whistling, warning,
No.
etc.?
No.
Because don't forget, we have a Second Amendment
And a First Amendment.
I mean, yeah, and I'm sorry, in this code, a First Amendment. So.
It's not unlawful to flash your flashers to show that police are, up ahead, to do speed traps. That's been defended in court. Yeah, it is not unlawful to observe police. It's not unlawful to tell people that police are present. It's not, none of these things are unlawful.
Now, if in the example of SWAT, if that person physically stood in the way of a doorway while they were issuing that warrant after the door was breached or whatever, then yeah, that would be obstruction. That's clearly you were trying to impede this officer. Now, standing on the outside and just being annoying, no.
We are assuming, by the way, for the purposes of this hypothetical, that this person is unaffiliated with the person that's being swatted. Because, like, if they were a lookout, that's a whole different situation. If they're just a random person who is sending information, then there's no conspiracy. So
it'd be an accessory at that point.
As long as they're not a lookout.
Every time I hear them damn whistles, it reminds me of Terry Crews on the floor of the white shit. Yeah, it does. It does. Is there a logical argument for Pretti being unlawfully criminally confined by the agents, considering the totality of the circumstances?
That's what we've been discussing.
Yeah, that's there is an argument, but the problem is that now I'm going to be on the other side. Even if the officers were wrong, or the arrest was unlawful, they didn't have any basis, you don't have a right to resist. So that's also placed into the part. So when people say resisting arrest, you don't have the right to resist, but you do have the right to self-defense of unlawful force, unreasonable force. So that's, and you got to kind of parse that as it is. It's a very fine line, and it's a very high standard, because again, the government doesn't want you beating up its officers and claiming that. So that's where we're looking at. Legal Eagles use Kevin Porter Jr. as an example of an ICE murder. Wow. He was firing shots in the air at his apartment when an off-duty agent engaged him. Porter shot at him. Good shoot or innocent baby angles? No, I'm sorry. If a cop comes up to somebody who's shooting a gun, that's we're in no man's land at that point.
So in reference to escalation of force, and this goes back to Kurt's point, possessing a Second Amendment item is not inherently criminal under any sense. Discharging the weapon now puts it in a different category, because now you've escalated it from just the possession of a potentially dangerous object to utilizing negligently this potentially dangerous object. So that's the line in the sand.
And again, you could be, you could be technically helping everyone, I'm saving someone else from being harmed, right? Because this person is just shooting up in the air. So yeah, that was if that's the case, I think that would be a clean shoot. But I have to look at Legal Eagle's video, his newest video, because I know he's making that game. I was late to the party. Where does the duty to inform come in, and does it matter? Is that a factor? I would say no. From now, like the duty, I'm assuming this is a duty of the person who's carrying the firearm to inform the agents that they're armed.
So correct me if I'm wrong. That applies if he's actively being frisked and asked, "Do you have a weapon?"
I don't know the answer to that question.
I want to say. So right now, that's a good question. Thank you. But I want to say that if you are being asked directly, "Do you have a firearm?" then yes, you have a duty. But other than that, but it may be up to different state laws. So
I'm not sure. That's something I'm not that sure. Isn't the 1A the right to peacefully assemble? Yes. Yep. And the Supreme Court has said blowing whistles and yelling at cops is part of the right to peacefully assemble. You're holding up signs, screaming, yelling. The thing that's not peaceful is when you start blocking and forcibly trying to stop them. Or if they, for instance, they're trying to go into the building and they jump in front of the doors, that's what's unallowed. But yes, if you stand on the street corner, yell and scream, that is considered peaceful. There's a lot of Supreme Court law in this. Kurt will tell you, it's very hard to overcome that from the First Amendment, and we see protests all the time where both sides, the cops are pushing, they're pushing, and then they're like, oh, nobody's arrested. It's a peaceful protest because the First Amendment really is flexible when it talks of protesting.
That's a ground that I know the Supreme Court, from my understanding, they don't really want to tread on that at all, unless it's absolutely necessary, like yelling fire in a movie theater type of stuff. Like other than that, my understanding is that they do not want to start impeding that because it sets a bad precedent.
Force science comes in. All wearing similar uniforms, and intentional blindness and experimental blindness comes in. Action bias plus delayed inhibition plus poor identification, predictable fatigue, argument justification. Who's arguing?
Yeah, I mean, all these things could be relevant to an eventual trial. So all these things could be elements of testimony that could lead a jury to conclude reasonable doubt. It's possible.
Thank you so much, Instructor Mike. If an agent can remove a person from the vicinity of an operation, which the agent did, but the operation seemed to me to be over, but I'll even give you that. Then Peretti grabs the agent's arm after the agent pushed the woman. How is that not an arrestable offense? Well, I would say this. I believe if the agent is witnessing the officer use unreasonable force against someone else, I mean Peretti, and steps in between them to stop that unreasonable force against a third party, I think you could make an argument that he's employing self-defense against the unreasonable force for the woman.
The self-defense could be on the behalf of a person or a third party.
Yes, if you see but the thing is that you got for this, since it's so narrow, you got to be right. You can't be wrong. It has to it has to be.
You could make a case for that because he was trying to actually help the woman up initially. So that is plausible given the totality of events. So
but I'm going to say what I said earlier. It just doesn't matter either way, because my question, as before, is how is it relevant to the shooting, right? It's like, okay, like you guys seem to be looking for a reason that Peretti was behaving unlawfully. It's like, for the purposes of this discussion, I'm willing to give it to you. I'll give it to you. Peretti was doing something unlawful and the cops had a valid reason to arrest him. Okay, I'll give it to you. My question still remains as before. How is the shooting good? Right? Did the cops have valid basis to arrest? Sure. What the hell? You got it. Did they have valid basis to shoot him? That's my question. I don't know how any of this matters.
Clear and present danger, sir.
Yeah, basically.
How would a layperson expected to distinguish between lawful and unlawful use of force in situ and determine if their own self-defense is warranted?
No.
Well, the law presumes that there is that if you're because don't forget, it's a reasonable person. So a layperson doesn't have to be correct. You have to be reasonable. Like even the cops don't have to be correct. They just have to. The standard is reasonable, not perfection. And I think a lot of people are looking for perfection on both sides, but not really understanding that it's reasonable. What's reasonable? That's the law. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the show. Thank you so much. And this is the last super chat. We got second to last. This one is the last one. Anything else comes out, we got to go. Must display permanent card identification document upon lawful demand.
Doesn't fucking matter. No one fucking cares. Fuck you.
No one. Yeah, and nobody asked them for it, right? No one demanded it.
But
and
let's presume.
But hold on. I just want to say this: they are not peace officers.
That's also true. They're also not peace. They're also not peace officers. That's also technically true.
I'm going to grant if they were peace officers. Okay, I'm going to grant that.
Right.
Just for this purpose. How would he have rendered it? At what point?
Also, his failure to do so is a fairly minor violation of the it doesn't fucking matter to the shooting.
It's the draconian, tactics used. Like it doesn't. The escalation doesn't meet what was given. But at what point was he able to render it? Even if he was asked for it, even if they were peace officers, if somebody is pinning me down and holding both my hands, show me your ID. I can't. I don't have any more arms. So it's like. That argument doesn't really work too well, but I see what you're trying to get at though.
We can watch this, but yes, we just read this one. So we got this one. Before you in the stream, each give your takeaways, legal and non-legal. There's a lesson from this tragedy. So I'll start. I think the lesson here is that I think the first officer who started pushing everybody around started this whole series of events. And I think that officer should be fired, maybe even prosecuted. And I think this whole issue is going to really turn on whether it was the suspect's gun that misfired or if it was the first officer that fired, because then I'm thinking the evaluation change was probably justified, because negligence, even if the officer was negligent, that will still be justified. But if the officer was reckless, and then we're going to have another problem. And again, we're looking at what a reasonable officer would do in the same set of circumstances. So that's my opinion.
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. So I'll stick with this. Look, you F around, you find out. Okay. Look, so nobody acted perfectly. There should be a higher standard to law enforcement. I do agree that the CBP officer was instigating a lot of it. People are asserting that there are extenuating circumstances that play a role. That has to be demonstrated that CBP officer knew and understood and used whatever information y'all are trying to bring up in his mental calculus at the time of the shooting, right? Not after. But I do think that Walls and many others that foment this anger and that create this animus towards a situation are also to blame, because they are emboldening their population to be this combative towards the officers. So, that's me.
Last one, please watch the full video. Tag CBP and TARG CBPOP. Petty and others given lawful orders, get out of the street. Petty others went back into the street. Petty non-compliant assaults officers, resist arrest, and has concealed.
I'm aware of all that. It doesn't change my analysis. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of assumptions here. Petty was non-compliant. From what I'm seeing, if somebody sprays mace in your face, you're probably going to be a little non-compliant because your eyes are burning and all that stuff. That makes a difference. Like, we have to take into account that they got a half can of mace in their face. It was funny because I know when we were talking with Bronco the other day, he was saying that, like, it's not like 90% of the time mace does work or 80% of the time mace does work. So I think a reasonable person would think, if I mace these people and they're reacting like the mace is affecting them, then it would be reasonable to believe that they are that person is experiencing the effects of the pepper spray. And it would be hard, again, like, I've maced people before, and unfortunately for those people, it's difficult to comply. When you got a can of mace in your face, it's difficult to comply because I'm trying to pull your hand down, but you know what you're trying to do? You're trying to wipe the mace out your eyes and your hands are burning. And then sometimes it's funny because we arrested this guy. I don't know why this guy maced him, but anyway, the guy mace hits him with the pepper spray. We jump on him and we're locking him up. And next thing you know, because people, how you touch your face all the time, we're like, I rub my nose and now I'm struggling because I got mace in my face and the other people. So it gets crazy like that. So
I can say that I've not experienced mace, but I've experienced CS gas, and you're trained. Yeah. CS gas is terrible, by the way. Every orifice on your body starts to excrete mucus, a lot of it. But you're trained to stand there with everybody else, breathe it in, and say your full social security number, first and last name, and say a whole bunch of other stuff. And it is incredibly difficult. I know because I had to go through twice. So it is, I'm telling you, if that's anything like mace, it's going to be real hard to comply with anything.
Yeah, I love that. That'll be great for identity theft, right? What is it? Write it down, right? And nobody write it down. What would be the steps to charge to change federal immunity? We got to go
Congress to pass
the
the statute would be nice.
Yeah, we got to go up. But listen, everyone, we actually have to run. Thank you guys so much. You kept us here for 2.5 hours. Again, we do this every Wednesday. Myself and the commentary king. Kurt comes over sometimes and hangs out, but this is our essentially every Wednesday stream about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So we stream it, and we hope you like
now it's
the content.
2:30. My day is already gone.
But
I hate all of you.
We want to thank you guys all for coming, and we will see you next week, hopefully.